Hello, everybody, and welcome to ATP Insights, where we cover the most important tech news in Asia. Today is Thursday, the 20th of August, 2026. As always, a lot to get to. I want to try to cover at least quickly two stories today. The China-US AI Cold War is coming to Asia, and China dominates the humanoid robot race. I want to follow up on something we covered on Monday, the Unitree story. And as always, we have just an amazing list of guests today. We're going to be joined by Simon Mann, CPO at Eats 365, to talk about how restaurant operating systems and how AI-powered restaurant operating systems will impact restaurant efficiency. Following that, we're going to welcome CK Tan, APJ Innovation Officer at ServiceNow, a gigantic company, to discuss how agentic AI and intelligent workflow platforms could change the way enterprises operate and execute work. Next, we'll talk to Tiffany Khoo, the founder and CEO at WeAssist, to cover how AI-enabled healthcare workforce can help hospitals just get clinical talent faster and operate more efficiently. And then Carmen, Calisto, Chief Sales and Marketing Officer at Cartrack, will talk about how intelligent fleet technology is improving the safety and economics of businesses that depend on mobility. There are a lot of guests today. Christine Lowe, the head of Observability, APJC at Splunk, will talk to us about how AI observability will help businesses operate increasingly autonomous technology securely and reliably. Jean Lim, founder and CEO at Being AI Corporation, will talk about how human-centered AI beings will change the way businesses build relationships, support decisions, and create value with their customers. We're also going to welcome Jerry Shah, founder and CEO of Quill, Lingbi.chat in China, I believe, to discuss how AI-powered content operating systems are changing how small businesses build brands and give them a competitive advantage. And finally, Leo Wong, co-founder and CFO at Pony.ai, is going to talk to us about a bunch of stuff, about how autonomous commercial driving can change the economics of mobility of cities and of logistic businesses. And before we get to all of our guests and some news, a couple of really good news stories, let's hear from our presenting sponsor and our presenting partner, Twilio. Twilio is the secure and scalable platform to build amazing customer engagement without the complexity, with the AI-driven workflows you need to connect. They are trusted by over 300,000 businesses. It is the platform that simply makes more possible. Visit Twilio.com to start building today. Okay, let's get to our first news story. The China-US AI Cold War comes to Asia. Look, I want to talk about this. It is not the case that the world has already split into two technically incompatible AI systems. That is not the case at all. It just that it feels like to me, and again, this is not a politics show at all. This is a tech show, and we just want to focus on the tech. But the AI cooperation is becoming part of economic security policy. I think people are getting really, really nervous globally about like how this is going to play out. Now, remember, earlier this year, Washington's Pax Silica initiative began as a framework for securing the AI supply chain. Remember, a lot of the chips and a lot of the components that people are using in computers, whether they're being built in Asia or assembled in the United States, come from China. Now, reporting on August 14th that the US State Department has now drafted a letter. They've only drafted this letter telling 35 different countries that closer participation in the US-led ecosystem may be incompatible with membership in competing frameworks. It doesn't mention like other places yet, at least not yet. The draft specifically treats this Pax Silica participation as a strategic commitment rather than a conventional technology partnership. It's not like, hey, we just want to work with you guys. It's like, if you're going to work with us, you're working with us. Got it? And this is an important qualification for me, right? The letter, now remember this, I said a moment ago, this is still an unsent letter, but a drafted letter, and it has no date on it. So reporting could not establish when it was going to be sent, but believes with high confidence that it will be sent. And to be fair, when governments of any persuasion leak a document, because nobody like who's not in the government actually has seen this document for likely purposes. But if they've leaked it to the press and if they've leaked it to Reuters, it's probably somebody high up who said, let's just get this out there and see what the reaction is, right? This is how governments operate. And while the State Department of the United States has not commented on it, that is pretty standard operating practice for them. They've not announced a date on it. They've not said anything else about this. But what do you think happens? Well, China responded directly. What day is today? The 20th, I said. They responded directly on the 19th. That was yesterday. So their foreign ministry spokesman, Lian Jian, said government should retain the right to select technology partners according to their own national circumstances. That's not very controversial as far as I'm concerned. And Beijing framed that position around what it calls digital sovereignty and rejected attempts to create competing AI blocks. It's interesting to me that China feels so much more moderated in their response. Now, look, it's a response to something that hasn't been actually sent yet. But again, you don't know, right? Because the communication, the back channel communication, particularly when it comes to stuff like this, that's very sensitive and it's very important, right? And it's very significant, it's very topical. You have to know that there's got to be some back channel communication between both of these governments. I don't think anything happens in the world that the US does where China goes, sheesh, I didn't expect that to happen. And I don't think anything happens in the world where China does something and the US is like, we were completely blindsided. Okay, not 100% completely blindsided. Anyway, China also, because the Pax Silica is this kind of group that the US is kind of leading and that they put together. But we also mentioned this, I think it was a few weeks ago, but China also has their own group that they're calling WAICO, WAICO, which stands for the World Artificial Intelligence Cooperation Organization. Notice as well, nowhere does it say that it has the name China in it. And this was, established, I said, a few weeks ago. So about a month ago, July 29th. No, sorry, in July with 29 founding countries, excuse me. Beijing is presenting it as an international organization focused heavily on broad AI access and capacity building. Who knows what these international organizations are really going to be like? But again, we've talked about this a lot. There probably is the necessity for something like this, like the International Atomic Energy Association. If you believe that AI is this powerful today, and that it's going to get more and more powerful as we move forward, you're really going to want to have an international agency, I think, that that not controls this, but that has some relevance to what's happening here. Actually, I think this is actually going to end up being really, really important. Now, the significance for Southeast Asia is actually really, really straightforward to me. And I was thinking about this morning a lot. You can feel China's influence in the economies of these Southeast Asian countries. I feel it every single day in Thailand. I look around and I see what's happening in the Eastern Economic Corridor with just car construction, car manufacturing. We see BYDs. We see every other type of Chinese car on the road. And I have my friends sometimes, I'm walking down the street with them and like, what kind of car is that? And it's China. And while it's a Chinese car. Well, we're not going to get into this in detail today. We may cover this a little bit later. There have been reports recently that I've read, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, that said it feels like the Chinese EV and HEV makers are 10 years ahead of what's happening in the United States. And frankly, not just the US, but the rest of the world. And I think that's really significant. If you just look at the technology, the shape, the style, all of the stuff that's going into these Chinese HEVs and EVs, it feels like it's coming from the future. Now, governments in the region in Southeast Asia, as I mentioned, have spent years building technology relationships with both countries, both the US and China. And American cloud and semiconductor technology is deeply embedded in this region. Again, we know this. We didn't report per se. We're not journalists like that. But we did talk about the fact that Google, Microsoft, AWS, all are investing heavily, not just in Thailand, but in the Philippines, in Japan, in Indonesia, and in Korea, just across the entire Asian region, building both data centers as well, and also AI centers of excellence. This is not new news, okay? But Chinese cloud infrastructure and AI technology are also well established. Alibaba owns Lazada. Like, that's not a new thing. And Alibaba Cloud also is very well entrenched here. And turning those relationships into exclusive strategic ecosystems could make technological neutrality considerably harder to maintain for some of these companies that are, for some of these countries, actually. It's going to get a little bit tricky, I think, particularly for the countries that have really, really good relationships. And I think that's true for most of the countries in this region. They have really good relationships with both countries because strategically both are really important. And to be fair, strategically are both important, I think, for all countries in every part of the world. Governments are already signaling that they understand this problem. Singapore and the Philippines have formal Pax Silica relationships, which makes sense because this actually came out before WAICO came out. Indonesia joined WAICO while continuing discussions with Washington. And Malaysia describes its approach as conditional neutrality. Thailand has publicly said it intends to remain neutral, which historically has always been the case. Okay, Martin, before we move on to our next story, let's do Boomi. Boomi is the data activation company for artificial intelligence. Boomi powers the agentic Boomi, powers the agentic enterprise by bringing data to life across your business. Trusted by over 30,000 customers and supported by a network of 800 or more partners, Boomi helps organizations of all sizes achieve agility, efficiency, and innovation at scale. Let us just cover a story really quickly that we covered earlier in the week. I think we covered it on Monday. I want to talk a little bit more about Unitree. So China is now officially, in my mind at least, dominating the humanoid robot race. And this is a little bit of a follow-up on a story that we did earlier this week. So let's just do a little bit of that for now. Unitree Robotics has just given physical AI, and physical AI, to be fair, is really starting to gain a ton of traction, not just in this region, but globally. And Unitree, as we mentioned on Monday, was going to have an IPO, and this is the biggest public market moment so far. The company roughly raised around $900 million in its Shanghai Star Market IPO at a valuation of almost $9 billion. The shares opened up 629% above the IPO price and finished the session 460% higher, leaving Unitree worth roughly USD $50 billion. And as I mentioned, was possible, but now is confirmed, retail demand for Unitree shares on this Star Market launch had already exceeded the shares available by more than 8,000 times. Now, what's interesting about Unitree, just to go back over this, okay, is that, is that there's a real operating company here. There's a real operating company underneath excitement. Again, just to go over this, Unitree generated roughly $252 million of revenue last year, more than 4 times the previous year. And humanoid robots generated about half of that, USD $129 million, overtaking quadruped robots as the company's largest business. They shipped more than 5,500 humanoid robots in 2025, according to their prospectus. That's a lot of humanoid robots being shipped. Now, the valuation has moved much faster than the business for sure. At its closing price, Unitree was valued at roughly 200 times 2025 revenue, and revenue continued growing strongly in the first quarter of 2026, but adjusted profit fell 52.6% as spending on research and marketing increased. But that's normal. I think that's pretty normal, actually, and I wouldn't be too concerned about it. Again, I'm not making stock market predictions. That we don't make predictions here, and we don't make investment. We don't give investment advice here. But I think this is normal. Again, go all the way back to the early 2000s and watch what Amazon did. Every time their revenue went up, they took a ton of that money and they invested it back in the business. And now that's one of the biggest companies in the world, if not in the top 5. Now, the humanoid robot and the robotic industry itself is still an industry investing heavily to turn impressive machines into economically productive ones. And for me, that commercial question is becoming the central theme of China's robotics industry. Okay, I think that's actually really important. More than 300 companies are at Beijing's 2026 World Robot Conference. Just think about that, 300 companies. This is the thing about China, okay, is that with 1 billion people and a ton of them like very well educated and more engineers being educated in China than almost anywhere else in the world, definitely, what did we say, 10 times more than in the United States? The ability to just generate 300 companies at a robotics conference is something like maybe only China and India can do. And the emphasis here is moving towards robots performing productive work rather than demonstrations designed primarily to show mobility. So it was really great. Look, the internet blew up a couple of days ago showing one of these Unitree robots jumping like who knows how, 4 meters in the air and doing that sort of kick split. And then also showing it running at what, 4, I can't remember how fast, but super fast, right? On a racetrack. And then there was another video that went viral too that showed another company's robot actually running on a racetrack. Now, look, I have said plenty of times when they show the robots like breaking down the wall and stuff like that, there are no batteries, there's no power, there's no nothing. It doesn't look like it's not AI generated to me. This looked real. This looked very real to me. And Reuters was reporting that around 65% of these humanoid robots are still not being used for commercial purposes, but are being set up to do so as well. And the scale behind this, as I was saying, it really matters, okay? Chinese companies accounted for about 97% of global humanoid shipments in the first half of 2026. I mean, just think about that, 97%. Who else is shipping anything? According to Smart Analytics in China, already has more than 2 million industrial robots operating in factories. Robotics has also been placed at the center of China's 2026 to 2030 industrial strategy. So to me, this Unitree story is bigger than just like, wow, the IPO was oversubscribed by 8,000 times by its retail investors, or that the price spiked. We saw the same thing with SpaceX. I haven't looked at the SpaceX stock yet today. I have actually, frankly, I haven't looked at it all week because it's just kind of hovering around that 145 level. Give me 1 second and I can just double check. Give me 1 second. Yeah, so it's closed back down at like 139.65. Let's call it around 140. It hasn't moved that much actually in the last few days. Let me just take a look at the 5-day chart of, of this. Yeah, again, so it spiked up on 17th, came back down on the 18th and 19th, and now it's kind of just like trading in a range. And that makes a perfect amount of sense to me. And again, this Unitree story is more to me than just like a public listing of a stock that's gone up. But the public market response here has put a very large price on the assumption that physical AI can move from technological capabilities into real like industrial productivity. And you can tell that China is making a real bet on like on robots that are like not for demonstration only, like not guys that can shuffle cards or flip a burger or like wear an apron in a kitchen. Like China is not interested in doing this at all, to be fair. They want to build humanoid robots that can actually have commercial value and exist in industrial spaces. And again, getting back to this, I believe, if I remember correctly, Unitree is also testing this stuff in the baggage handling or in some form or function at Haneda Airport in Japan. And we're not going to go into like why that's important and why that matters today. Now, just one more thing before we get to our guests. Why has China made this decision? Why? To develop such a strong position in physical AI. So China already has an enormous robotics manufacturing base. Okay. More than 2 million, as I said, industrial robots were operating in the country by the end of 2024, making it the world's largest installed base. And again, you can quote really large numbers in China, but I mean, China's just a large company. It's probably like the largest installed base of everything in the world, just because the population is so high. And to be fair, I don't believe that India would be that far behind, again, because those populations are relatively equivalent. Now, Chinese factories also accounted for 54% of worldwide industrial robot installations in 2024. Chinese manufacturers also captured 57% of their domestic industrial robot market for the first time. And that creates an existing supplier and engineering ecosystem into which humanoid robots can develop. That's the point, right? Is that I feel like when it comes to building industrial robots, industrial humanoid robots, even though Japan may have actually been at this longer than the Chinese, is that the market into which China can actually sell and distribute these is just much larger. In a way, it's probably 10 times larger than the market in Japan. Now, I'm not suggesting that Japan can only sell or distribute its humanoid robots into Japan, but that would be the first natural market. Does that make sense to people? Because that makes sense to me. Okay. And that's one of the reasons why China can actually do this really well. But also Chinese policy is reinforcing this industrial base, which is really important to me. This is China's 15th 5-year plan, places AI-powered robotics at the center of the country's modern industrial strategy, and frankly, explicitly connects AI development with physical applications. Okay. And think about this too. Global AI companies are also engaging with that hardware ecosystem. So NVIDIA has chosen Unitree to manufacture its Isaac Groot reference humanoid, which is scheduled to become available, later in 2026. And the point is that, like, look, I mentioned this is China's 15th. I want to make sure I have this number right. 15th 5-year plan. That means for the last 75 years, they've been sitting around trying to decide, in a way, frankly, that's not too dissimilar to what happens in Singapore, where they just pick the thing they think is going to, or pick a few things actually that they think are going to be really important going forward, whether it's technologically, whether it's financially, and whatever that is, and they just like throw the whole country at it, and they make resources available to make sure that they're really good at it. Okay. I'm sure we will follow up on both of these stories as they continue to develop. Martin, let's welcome our first guest, Simon Mann. No, that's next after this. after the first guest. Simon, how are you? You don't mind if I call you Simon, yeah? That's the right way to address it.
It's perfect, yeah.
Okay, it's great to have you here. We wanted to talk to you about how AI-powered restaurant operating systems will impact restaurant efficiency, profitability, and scalability. But first, tell us a little bit about Eats 365.
Yeah, sure. Eats 365 is a cloud-based restaurant system that unifies the front of house, kitchen operation, and back office administration into one single system. But unlike traditional point of sale system, our system is an open platform, meaning that we provide open API for lots of third-party integration. You can treat us like an app store, but with lots of applications that take care of different parts of the running a restaurant. Right now we are serving 36. Right now we are serving 36 countries with our major market in Southeast Asia.
Got it. How long has Eats 365 been around?
Yeah, around 12 years.
12 years. So what was the idea to build an API, an open API ecosystem around the restaurant? I won't even call it a POS business because that's really not what this is. It's more of an integrated system business. But what was the idea around saying we want to make this open and connected? And frankly, I like the idea that you've referenced this app store. Maybe you can dig a little bit deeper into why that matters and where it's been most effective.
Because we position ourselves as an ecosystem, that means we are not building everything by ourselves.
Yep.
Of course, we got restaurant system that is taking care of the front of house, like order taking, kiosk taking, or mobile ordering. But at the same time, we need some third-party integrations like accounting system, inventory system, CRM system, reservation system. All experts have their own expertise. But being in an ecosystem, we build an open platform to invite those third-party solutions to join us, to fully integrate with us. So the whole thing works as a complete solution,
What does it feel like to a restaurant that's using this system? Do they get to pick and choose the components that they want to use if they're using Eats 365? And have you seen those choices via what I'm going to call the Eats 365 app store? Have you seen them consolidate around like a top 5 or a top 10 sort of accounting or other types of things? Or is it just so open and available? It's more like WordPress where they're just like thousands of plugins and people can use whatever they want.
Well, our system is designed to be very modularized. That means if they start out small, like a small neighborhood sport, they just need maybe a single point of sale system that would work. But when they expand into a local chain, they would certainly need more system. Like maybe they want some kiosks to automate some ordering process. Maybe they need some accounting system, like some popular zero system or reservation system to join the operation. So the system have to be very modularized so that when they expand, it is scalable.
And have you seen, so zero was actually the first thing that popped into my mind. I don't know why you and I were both thinking the same thing. But again, it's a very sort of popular, and again, in and of itself, a modular accounting system that's been around, I don't know now, for 15 or more years. That was the first thing that popped into my mind. But one of the things that app stores encourage is the development of new and maybe even smaller or lighter systems that get built into your ecosystem. Have you seen that as well? Do you know what I mean? Which is say like, because Xero is a big sort of overriding, complicated now accounting system where some people don't need all of that functionality and frankly can't afford to pay for it. So I'm curious if you see new things grow up that kind of fill that gap but are much lighter.
Yeah, we've seen some third-party integrations like self-order kiosks, let's say, and a partner which is good at building kiosks. So they use our open API to get a menu, and they build kiosks so that the ordering interface is very intuitive, very smooth for guests to order by themselves. So these are some small scale of integration.
Got it. One of the things I said in the intro is I wanted to figure out like how AI-powered restaurant operating systems actually have impact. How is AI changing? And maybe you can break it up into two pieces for me. You've been around, you said, for 12 years, yeah?
Yeah.
So break it down into two pieces for me. One, I'm going to call it like pre-ChatGPT and post-ChatGPT, because I do believe that they're really different. I don't want to talk about, we can talk about it. You can break it down into generative and agentic AI if you feel like it. That's up to you. We can dig deeper into both of those things. But before ChatGPT was released, our access to artificial intelligence was more machine learning based, if that's fair. What was it like back then, and what is it like today?
Well, I think about a decade ago, we used to have restaurant chains that spend a huge budget building their own proprietary restaurant system, like the point of sales, reservation, or loyalty apps. But on the other hand, some mom and pop operators just lack the resources to compete.
Yeah.
So the restaurant chains used to have better resources, better tools, better tech to have an edge over the competition. But I see that those days were gone. Those old approach often led to crazy development costs with endless maintenance speed.
Yeah.
But in most cases, those are one-off IT projects. The software vendors develop a system based on the requirements you gave them at that time. And they would not help you keep an eye on the latest trend and make an enhancement. But nowadays, I think the mom and pop independent shops can have the opportunity to choose some SaaS model, which is proven to be even a more powerful solution to them, because those SaaS models instantly collect market feedback, keep enhancing the system, keep releasing new features to help merchants stay updated. So I guess the purest part is the pre-GPT era, but now I think in the market we see lots of AI-enabled solutions that is open up for every size of restaurant, even you're just a mom and pop shop.
And what kind of democratization has that given to them? In other words, how has it changed their operations in a way that maybe they had not anticipated, now that they have access to some of the most powerful artificial intelligence tools that were may have been way more expensive in the old days than they are today?
Well, you mean how these technology changed their operations?
Yeah, in other words, I'm a restaurant, right? Let's say I've been using the Eats 365 system, or frankly, any sort of AI-enabled restaurant-associated system. Again, if I could afford to have artificial intelligence, a team that does that, or a machine learning team that does that, that could help me sort of rationalize my ordering, so I have just the right number of tomatoes or just the right number of, sirloin steaks, because based on my previous ordering and the previous stuff that I've served to my clients, I know like all these things down to like the most minute ordering specification. But now that I have ChatGPT, I can do a whole bunch of and systems like that. I can do a whole bunch more things. Has it made those sort of mom and pop restaurants able to compete with bigger chains, because now they have way more access to their own information and better way to understand it?
Yeah, I can give you a great example. We see some merchants trying to automate upselling process to agents. When we talk about upselling, usually you imagine it's a face-to-face conversation. You have a server who is good at talking to customers. And through some conversation, you are able to understand what this guest may like to eat or drink. This is a way to delight guests and also increase the ticket size. But the fact is, not all staff are good at that.
Yeah,
some staff are just too shy to do this. Some staff maybe they think that I'm just a part-time worker. I'm getting hourly paid. Why would I do that with no incentive? But however, imagine if the upselling function is built into a self-order kiosk or a mobile ordering app. That's a game changer, because mobile ordering or the kiosk, they won't feel shy. They always do upsell, and they work 24 hours a day. And when they make recommendation, they are always data-driven. They know what's hot selling. They know what is good to pair with. They can even remember every customer's food preferences based on the historical spending records.
Right.
And these solutions are all available to a restaurant in any size.
So this is actually super interesting to me. In the old days, when you went to a fancy restaurant, you had some guy show up to your table with like a pad. It was really small, and you're just like, there are 6 people here. How can you remember everything? He's just writing down little notes to himself. And at some point, he wouldn't even look at you. He'd be like, if you're going to get the beef, you probably want to have that with the spinach, and you're like, how do you even know that? But, right? You're like, I'm glad you know that. And how do you remember last time I had the spinach? Like, that's a great memory. But now you don't even have to do that anymore. And you're right. I've had plenty of situations where I've gone into a restaurant and I've sort of been back and forth with the guy or the gal that's serving me. And they're like, I'm just here like, you know what I mean? Don't ask me these questions, because I have no way of knowing, and I kind of don't care. But now that it's electronic, whether it's a kiosk or even in the restaurant, are you suggesting then that it does go back and get all this data historically, even in the restaurant, and says like, this would go with this wine and this would go with that thing, and the last time your cousin was here, like all this information is readily available from the cloud, I'm guessing, right in the fingertips of the person that's serving you?
Yeah, I guess we are fortunate to have planned on day one to collect and store the data for future use. Even though at that time we're not sure how those data can be used, but we
Really?
just believe, yeah, whenever the
Okay.
future arrives, data would be ready to build something amazing. Honestly, because we provide a POS system, and we are in a unique position to capture every single detail.
Right.
We're talking about collecting the rawest, the most granular data in a regular restaurant visits, like who came in, and which table they took a seat, how long he spent browsing menu, what items he ordered, and at what time the kitchen received his order, and how long the chef spent to prep the food,
Makes sense.
and how much he spent and what time they left. We collect all this kind of data so that today we have the foundation for AI agents or some system to work on those data with guardrails, of course, to produce something amazing.
So two things. Let me just write down the second one because I know both of you and I are both going to forget this. So just give me 1 second to make a little note to myself. But the one thing you said actually that's super interesting is that you saved the data even though you weren't 100% sure what you were going to use it for, right? And I would guess a chain restaurant itself, if there are 10, 15, 100 sort of locations, they're going to probably have a data team. But a mom and pop restaurant's probably not. And if the idea at least is to help some of the smaller restaurants compete, it's not the only idea, right? It's all restaurants should have this help. But how do you make sure that a restaurant itself that the quality of the operational data is ready? Do you know what I mean? And clean, because this is a big thing for whether it's a bank or other financial institution or insurance company or a hospital or anywhere. They have all this data, but sometimes the data is fragmented. It's not in the right place. It's not in the right order, like all this stuff. How do you make sure that the data is right first and then make sure that it's operationally ready to then handle all this stuff you want to do with artificial intelligence?
I can give you an example.
Love it. Go for it.
In the old days when they're using the legacy system, they're like, in many markets, we are having lots of delivery order platforms like Foodpanda, Uber Eats, or Grab. Those platforms now account for like 30% of the restaurant's revenue. In some restaurants, even up to 50% if you're running a quick serve or fast casual restaurant. But we still see many cashiers are still juggling the counter full of different devices. So you see, imagine there are random orders coming in and some random tickets printing out, and the cashier need to collect the printout and punch them back to the POS system so the kitchen knows what to make. So in the peak hour, it's making a mess. So a modern system should be able to integrate all this kind of information so that the workflow looks seamless to the operator.
I mean, I still wonder, I would say somewhere like 12 to 15 years into having these digital POSs that are very powerful, why when you walk into a restaurant, there's still like, 6 or 7 different terminals that look almost exactly the same, that have different printouts coming out, that have not somehow been consolidated by somebody into this horizontal business that connects all of those all that terminal information into one place that can get the Food Panda, that can get the, Grab food, that can get the Shopee food, that can get all those orders into one place where that ticket comes out, it gets posted into the kitchen somehow, whether electronically or physically, and it's just one device to deal with. And then one POS that can handle all of that too, so that when people pay, like I scan to pay everything, right? I'm always asking, is it this device? Is it that device? Like, how come there's nothing that sits all the way on top of all this stuff yet?
Yeah, that's how legacy system work. But let's be honest, the F&B industry in Asia is notoriously slow to adopt this new tech.
Fair enough. Is it just too expensive for them, or does it eat into their margins, or is it just like too hard to train people? What's stopping them from actually saying like, okay, that thing exists, it's going to make my life a lot easier over time, but I can't do that today because why?
It's not a cost issue. It's just this industry, they don't love tech. They don't love to change. When you talk to those operators, you find that they are very passionate about food.
Yeah, for sure.
They're passionate about serving people in the community. But when you talk to them about technology, like how to use data to make better decisions, they just often don't click. They naturally stick to what they used for years and hoping that what worked would continue to work.
Got it.
Yeah.
So basically what you're telling me is the restaurant owners don't have kids that are telling them, like, come on, mom, you got to be using some of this cool AI that we use on TikTok.
Yeah, they're not aware how essential it is now to deploy the latest tech for survival.
So what happens when they see like one of their competitors using artificial intelligence and that their ordering becomes so much more efficient? Do they then think like, hey, what am I doing wrong? Or they're just not exposed to that at all because they're so into the food and the service?
Yeah, then they start to wake up. When they see the neighborhood start to use the latest tech, they just start to wake up and think about, I guess they are waking up. At least they are doing two processes right now. They start to look for some daily routine tasks.
Yep.
And look for tasks that used to be handled by experienced staff. And then the second step is they try to look for system or solutions that automate these tasks.
Right. Where are you based?
We are based in Hong Kong.
Okay, but Hong Kong has this insanely competitive and like really high level, I would say, food and beverage business. I don't know, restaurant business. Like it doesn't matter where you go in Hong Kong. There's always like some new sort of amazing restaurant opening up, and then a new one opens up next to. Like the competition's really high. Where do you think this automation can have the biggest impact on the restaurant economics? Right, because that's the point. If they can actually use this stuff, and it not saves them money, but it makes them more money, makes them more profitable, they'll definitely do it. Yeah. Where do you think this has the most impact?
I think they start to realize that running a restaurant business now has the lowest margin ever. You know, rising food costs, rising wages, and they are trying to look for any means to cut costs or make it more efficient. And the good thing is the technology is already out there, and we see that we see some AI applications that already practical at helping some kind of merchants. I can give you some example. Like one we often seen is like table reservation. You used to have rely on the staff to call the guests ahead of time to double confirm the booking, and sometimes call again on the day of reservation, just a kind of reminder.
Really?
So this is to cut down on no-shows, you know.
Yep.
But to be honest, it is a tedious and repetitive job and consume lots of the staff time. But now more and more merchants are using some AI-enabled solutions, and we see AI chatbots that can make phone calls by themselves to the guests to double confirm the bookings. They speak multiple languages in even the local dialect. So this helps the front-end staff to save lots of time so they can focus on what actually requires a human touch.
Do you have any sense for what I know you're not on the phone when this is happening, but do you have any sense for what the customer response is when they get what's an automated phone call from a restaurant? And I presume that this is a higher level restaurant, right? If you're making a reservation, it's a fancier style restaurant. What do we get a sense for what the customer response is? Or are they like, wow, it's super cool, I just got an AI generated response? Or are they like, God, I really wish Bob had called me directly?
Well, nowadays the phone calls are really natural, like a human talking to you. You can even respond like, can I bring my pet? Where's the location? Do you have any nut-free menus? Yeah, this AI bot is still able to answer those questions, which wouldn't be possible in the past.
And how fast is that getting better and better, by the way?
Really, really quick.
Yeah. Is it really? Can you just do one more thing for me? Where you mentioned agentic AI, and I made a note to myself before so I wouldn't forget, but I forgot anyway because I'm just human. I'm not AI, even though sometimes people accuse me of being AI. But how does that change the relationship between the restaurant people and between the software itself, like the restaurant itself, and the people that are actually operating the business? Do you know what I mean?
You mean how the restaurant operator responds to these AI agents?
Yeah, in other words, like there's now like another layer of somebody telling them like you should do this or this is the best response to that. And it's just another layer. I'm just curious how like the people that are actually operating the restaurant are responding to that. And then I'll let you go.
When we try to deploy something new, usually they are a bit negative to that. It's just like when your phone got a new software update on day one, you might not know what that happens. Yeah. But when you spend a day playing with it, you find a reason why they got these updates. I can show you an example. Like ingredient procurement, it's
Yeah.
used to be performed by the head chef, who has a direct relationship with the suppliers. So every day the head chef estimate how much to
Right.
replenish. But you never want to order too less
Or too much.
or too much, or that would cause food waste. So the judgment is purely based on experience. But nowadays we see more application like having an AI-powered inventory system. And this system can make accurate forecasts, putting together part sales together with information like local weather forecasts, or they can search for any upcoming events happening. Like, is it a long weekend, or would there be a nearby concert or ball game that bring extra footage? So putting all this information together, this inventory system is proven to be outperform human in terms of making forecasts.
Good, because that was going to be my last question to you. So I'm glad you went for it and segued without me asking. Okay, Simon, that was great, super interesting. And one of the reasons why, and I'll let you go in a second, but one of the reasons why this is so interesting to me, and I think to our viewers and listeners as well, is because everybody goes to a restaurant. They're kind of wondering, like, how do they have just the right amount of lobster? Like, how do they always get it right? You know what I mean? They don't run out, and only the last guy that orders it is the last guy that orders the last piece. Anyway, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate your time today, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for inviting.
Bye for now. Okay, Martin, let's do the HCL Tech now. HCL Tech is supercharging progress with AI that moves beyond ambition and delivers real business impact. A recognized AI leader trusted by global enterprises to turn technology into transformation. HCL Tech, supercharging progress. Okay, let's welcome our next guest now, CK Tan. CK, how are you? I am super duper. Where are you based? Awesome. I will be in Singapore soon, apparently. Look, it's great to have you here, and thank you so much for taking the time to join the show. A lot to talk about, obviously. I wanted to talk to you about how agentic AI and intelligent workflow platforms can change the way enterprises govern technology and execute work. Maybe just to give our viewers and our listeners a little bit of background, tell us a little bit about ServiceNow, please.
So ServiceNow has been trying to make the world work better for everyone, and now truly in the era of AI.
For a while, though, yeah?
Yeah, for a while, for most than 2 decades.
Yeah.
It didn't really change the fundamental. Now AI is coming in, well, really making AI work for us, for people, right?
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about Singapore in particular, if you don't mind. I just keep reading more and more articles about how the spending on artificial intelligence in Singapore just continues to increase. How close do you think we are to getting a real sort of measurable ROI from that investment into from the execution that people are getting from this AI that they're using now and the money that they're spending on it?
I mean, definitely Singapore is spending at pace, and the push from the government. PM Lawrence Wong just set up the AI Council. There's a lot of buzz around it. But I think the real question is whether we are spending, to access or to actually transform how we work here. From our recent report from the Maturity AI Index, we definitely seen that the spending has more than doubled year-over-year. That's huge, right? Wow. About 180%. But truly, when we look into the survey, dig down a little bit, only 10% of the organizations say they have truly transformed with autonomous multi-step workflow. True, there are many AI tools that's out there, helping everyone to summarize, to search for better information. But I think truly works, adapts to us is really, bringing up the capacity in terms of the workforce, or really, trying to impact a business outcome here.
So this is actually interesting, and I love the word choices that you made. You said only 10%. Just repeat that again. Only 10% of companies are what? Say it again.
Truly transforming through autonomous multi-step workflows. What it really means here is, No,
I know what you mean exactly, but I like the word choice because you said only. Can I push back just a little bit, because I think only is like the wrong word choice.
Oh, okay.
I think it's already 10% because it's so. This is what I really believe that. So I'm trying to help you here. I'm not trying to be mean, even though it sounded like that at first. But the point is that these multifunctional workflows that you're talking about that are being done through agentic AI are so new to me, right? And sure, the spending has doubled. I think that's a little bit of a red herring because this stuff is going to double at the beginning of any sort of technology cycle, that those numbers are going to double, triple, quadruple over the first like 4 or 5 years anyway. It's a great number. But why do you think that number is so high, actually? And why do you think it's going to continue to get, how do you think it's going to continue to get higher? Because we're still in early days. And if that many people are already using it, that's going to accelerate faster. Isn't that the plan for ServiceNow? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think the word I use only is I think the potential is there, right?
Go ahead.
I think what we are seeing is from the last year when we see the maturity, it actually dipped down and it actually spiked up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think a lot of the investment has been going in through the foundation, setting it up, right? From the report, we have seen some citing in terms of, for example, even getting ready for AI testing, auditing, and risk processes. And Singapore being one of the first nation actually launched out the AI governance framework just for agentic AI earlier this year by MDA.
Yep.
Organizations are still not catching up to that. And talk about the legacy, systems that's still in the back end,
Yep.
the risk processes that I spoke about, and also the infrastructure in here. So a lot of funding is actually going towards that direction, but that does not really automatically kind of pull organizations to that whole workflow design. Hence, I was saying the opportunity for us is to build upon this foundation. And especially, I think when training has undergoing, employees has been given the tools, the muscle are slowly, just going to the gym, right? You don't start running sprinting at once. I think organization is building up that sprint. I mean, for me, is the really opportunity is for every organization is to leverage AI to really, truly transform the business outcomes here. Because if you're not doing it, look across your shoulder.
Oh no, that guy's doing it over there. But do you get the sense, like when you talk to either your existing customers or potential customers, that they have a full understanding, and I use that word on purpose, right? That they have a full understanding of, we're not just attaching or trying to use artificial intelligence and particularly agentic AI, these multi-stage, these like workflow things that we're going through, that they understand they actually have to change the workflow itself as well, that that's where a lot of the efficiency is going to come from. And that if they just try to automate the current workflow in its current form, that's where stuff is going to break down. Do you get a sense that people understand that? And if not, what do they have to understand to get there?
I think there's a lot about the awareness and education drive. I do have seen a lot of enterprises, right? Rather than just focus on the technology investment, it's really to bring out the users. Now, today users are tomorrow's builder, right? That's a huge definition. Everyone is encouraged to use AI to really transform the way they work. And often, I'll run some workshops and I often say this: the first problem that you probably write down is probably a symptoms of the bigger problem. Now, this opportunity of transformation of AI is really, look at what we have today, right?
Yeah.
If AI is going to be the next robotic going to work alongside with me, how could I actually work better, work faster? So we heard a lot about, bringing up productivity so that everybody can go back on time at 6 p.m., right? So you spend time more with the family. But does this also means the same for organization, that I could actually increase my competitiveness?
Right.
I could bring out my customer experience around here. So that singular type of productivity gain, you'll be much more amplified when the whole organization start to look at it. I think this is where you start to look at the world of work in a different lens of context. What does the future means to every single one and the teams that are working with AI?
I don't disagree with you at all. I'm curious, like, how long it takes for people, like existing employees, to get used to their new agentic AI partners. And part of the reason I think is just 100% human, in the sense that even if you hire a new person to work in your group, most people are skeptical. They're like, I don't know if I trust this guy, Bob. He's new here. Do you get the same sense that in the agentic space, that when they're redoing workflows and stuff, they're like, I don't know if I trust this agentic guy at first, but then they sort of welcome them in as they start being more productive and start being more helpful?
I guess this is where we're gonna break down what we really mean by agentic workflow, right?
Go for it. Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
If you look at any enterprise, any organization, especially in regular market like government, bank, and insurance, right?
Yep.
They want deterministic outcome. I think the opportunistic that agentic AI brings along is that probabilistic piece about reasoning, right? Helping us as humans make better decisions because they have faster, bigger capacity to go through more data sets. They can actually do it much faster and accurate. And I'll argue that consistency can be trained as well, right? So, for example, you might have a team of 3 people working on certain tasks. The consistency is not there, right? And this is what I say, the probabilistic part. of the AI coming in to come in. But the acting piece, right? This is most where I see a lot of AI use cases, even vendor stop, right? The reason they give a proposal or a recommendation to the human and leave the human to do the rest. But what about fulfilling the rest of the work here? It could be simply as just fulfilling a request. For example, someone will request for something new, like an IT laptops. And this could actually, go through the whole cycle, but it could be more complex when we talk about an example of customer onboarding process, right? And we're seeing great examples is actually you can do much more efficient customer onboarding, like for example, the KYC, being able to respond back. And I think this is where the opportunities of, making use of workflows with agentic AI coming along to actually make the world of work much better. And more importantly, it's all about experience, right? People love experiences.
Do you have a sense for whether this AI at scale is more involved in internal processes? Like onboarding is actually a really important part of this, right? Whether and I'm saying like more in human resources type environments, or is it more external in onboarding clients, or just serving clients in ways that were just simplified because AI can do it on its own?
Yeah, I think Michael, you're spot on, right? So I say like, training your muscle, you're going to the gyms. You want to start
I'm trying, man.
training. I can see you're pretty good at that. But I was saying, you want to start to look at some of the back office function, right? I'll give you an example. Standard Chartered Bank, right, is one of the growing organizations. They're pretty much out there talking about how AI can be applied in the workplace. So rather than just laying on or putting on AI into existing processes, the bank actually reimagined the onboarding journey from end to end, right? Creating an experience that's simpler, faster, and more importantly, it's more connected, right? What the bank did was actually, instead of just jumping the technology and see where AI, they actually took the effort to actually map out each step of the processes, determining genuinely where it actually require human judgment, and that's why we call human in the loop, or whether a technology could act the greatest values. Now, the roles, the workflows, and an organization will redesign accordingly. Now, this transformation is real because it helped to reduce onboarding efforts for hiring manager up to about 35%, huge if you think about it, and delivering 25% of productivity gain across the HR team. Now, HR, instead of helping people to do onboarding, they now can do a lot more by, for example, helping a hiring manager to actually manage their team better. This is huge for the organization. Now, if you take this entire whole concept and apply that to the customer onboarding, it could work as well. But now you have the expertise, you have the technology know-how, you know where the risk, you know how to apply that. So I do see that there's going to be a lot more application coming on in the next 12 months.
Do you see, I mean, I think you're 100% right. I really do. I think the next 6 to sort of like 14 months are just going to be insane. I hope you don't need that much sleep to be fair. Do you see specific industries outrunning other industries where they're just more comfortable trying not just agentic AI, but just trying new technologies in general? So it's just easier to serve them where they're, I mean, obviously sales for big industries just takes, the lead time is long, but where's the lead time the shortest, you think, where like some of these companies or some of these industries like, okay, we've been waiting to do this. Now, how can you help us?
Yeah, and you know, I did mention about peering over your shoulder, and because of AI, you definitely see a lot of this AI native company coming out. The single human run companies. There's a lot of this coming out now. If you look at, I wouldn't say just bigger enterprise, even the medium enterprises, there's still a lot of legacy systems that they're carrying behind, right? The burdens of the legacy system, but I wouldn't let's necessarily call them legacies, right? These are system of record that's necessary to record anything from your accounting to your sales to your CRM. That's important. But let's take a look where AI does provide the advantages, right? I use this word a lot, is experiences. It's all about increasing the experiences of the users, your customers, most importantly, right? You may not apply AI directly to them, but if you start to apply AI, how to serve my customer experience better, faster, and that's where you want to land at. And I do see that opportunity for many organizations is look for where the friction is, right? The more friction is, that's where you need to start to tackle. Now, you can start off with just pure automation, right? Automate things that we can do, and start to venture in terms of like where AI can increase the capacity. So we have worked with an organization that kind of like even backtracking their help desk, right? Or contact center, right? They used to be 24 hours now. Some hotlines that you call, sorry, you have to call back the next day. you can totally have an AI agent with a voice. You may not do the consultative type of engagement, but what you could do that, Michael, I understand your concern. Let me just raise the ticket for you. So the next morning at 8 a.m., someone will call you back. And there's a huge spike in terms of customer experience because of that. And that's where the opportunity sits and lies in.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you're so right. Like in my head, I have this company that I've used for buying domains. Okay, just simple thing for buying domain names, right? This is so simple. And sometimes I have a question of like, how does this work and how does that work? I'm not going to say who the company is, but they're based in Canada. And I remember trying to call because I have a number you can call, and they were like, this office is only open from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, Toronto time. And I'm like, this is insane. There's an internet. What are we doing? And you're right. Even if just an AI had picked up the phone and said, hey, thanks for your call, Mr. Waitze. Someone will get to this as soon as possible. I would have at least felt like they knew I was calling. And that's not that hard to do.
Michael, if I may, I will add on my own experience.
Please.
So I had the same thing, right? And I was, I would name it as well, calling the furniture shop. I have a motorized, those recliner, must be the keys jumping too much on it. And I pick up the line and I say like, I know I need some servicing guy, right? And it was actually a voice agent, right? Picking up the phone. And it was nice. He was asking, is it mechanical? Is it automated? Yeah, I was, wow, man.
But you must have been so happy, right?
No, I thought it was my emotion was going good. Wow, a furniture shop actually investing in a voice agent. What happened to the telcos and the banks doing this, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The next moment I was saying like, oh, we need to send a serviceman going down. And that's where the frustration comes in. We'll send you SMS. I said, I didn't get SMS. Can you go to www.xyz ... to log your service request? That's why I'm saying, Michael, right? If you look at the work, right? If you're applying transformation or AI on just one piece, it doesn't really help. And if you look at organization, you can apply it for the front office. You get a good experience. So what? If you're taking 7 days to fulfill a request, that's not going to help with any customer experience. So I guess it's really about taking the whole action to fulfill. And all you need to take is, hi, Michael, I understand your problem. In fact, I have your phone number. I have your CRM record. Let me raise a ticket for you.
I love
We'll
this.
call you back to schedule. I think that would be a much better experience. And that, hence, I was saying that a lot of investment is going in to just take the first part or the first mile. But what about the 99 mile that you have to walk through?
I love the way you and you've said this word a lot and you actually pointed it out. I love the way you're focusing on experiences, because I do think that even when I go to a restaurant, the food, as long as the food is good, if my experience is better, I'm going back. Right. And I agree with you. Like a couch is a couch or a mechanical thing is a mechanical thing. But if my experience in dealing with them is good, I'm going to keep buying things from them, because I know that if I have an issue, and even if I don't, it's just going to be a better experience for me. Can I say one more thing at least? I want to go back to something you said earlier in our conversation. You said getting ready, like, are these companies actually, how are they getting ready for using agentic AI? What do you think has to happen, whether it's from a data perspective, whether it's from a rethinking the mindset perspective? Like, what do you think has to happen for these companies? And you can be general, for them to actually really get ready for using agentic AI in a way that they may not be ready yet.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the awareness, the adoptions, and the maturity of AI over the last 3 years. I remember when we first launched the report, running tons of Roundtable 2024. I asked the first question: does your company has a vision and strategy? And I remember at that time, most company doesn't even have a strategy.
Yeah, just like do something,
the roadmap to that. And today the conversation changed quite quickly, because it's not just even a C-suite conversation, it's a board level conversation. And you will see that coming a lot in. And today I was just having a conversation with my colleague is the next generation of C-suite has to be AI native or AI enabled, in that sense. So again, strategy is very important for the organization, right? Because strategy would then inform the transformation that does not just touch technology. It could touch talent and workforce. How many times you have seen on the news that AI was used as, for me, double quote, as an excuse, right, to do some transformation work. So that piece about managing the talent is also quite important, right? Because the change of work is happening and it impacts us as human, as a people. What important is that is how do you actually do the communication? And I say communication is in work to the workforce, but also communication to your customers. Just imagine you've been working with, you've been getting good services from this particular telco or bank, and then suddenly they switch you to AI.
Yeah.
The experience drop, right?
Yeah, you don't
So
want
that's
that.
why I think that there's technology is important, but if you look at the whole cycle, is about strategy, transformation, getting the talent internally, alignment in terms of communication, getting the communication out to your marketing through your marketing folks.
Yep.
That is a true alignment that every company needs to start looking at. And from a technology, I think, if I may, I would say that we've been obsessed with one thing, right?
Go ahead.
How does us as human adapt to AI? I say, why should I be doing that? AI should be adapting to me. I think this is a mindset shift that we need to also start to look at as well.
I like it. I'm going to use that, actually. I like it a lot. I have more for you. How important and how significant is the participation and the support of the Singapore government through its multiple agencies in making sure that AI, embedded AI into processes and agentic AI is actually used in a way that's going to make the country more efficient and more effective? And when I say the country, I mean the economy of the country, not just like how the government itself works.
I mean, if you look at the national policy, as I said, our PM actually have a,
Yep.
He's chairing the AI Council, and now Australia is also following suit with the PM kind of chairing the council.
Yep.
But it's more than just that. If you think about it, is when you use technology like AI, right, the governance. So, we have this first governance framework around agentic AI coming in.
Yep.
But more importantly is how to carry the whole workforce coming together. So every one of us is given credits to do trainings, like we call that a workforce future, but also given credits to actually use AI too. So really, there's little reason for most people, I wouldn't say for all, for most people to say that I don't have the resources to do or learning AI, right? So I think that's the first step. For me, I have a weekend addiction of just creating different AI.
Is it just a weekend addiction, or is it like an all-week addiction?
Yeah, my daughters, I was like, Daddy, you and your phone again, not on Instagram. I was like furious.
Normally it's
trying to do
reverse.
coding.
Normally it's reverse where you're talking. How old is your daughter?
Well, I have three. The
God.
eldest is 16 already, and she's
God.
the one that complains a lot. Daddy,
For sure.
stop it.
Unbelievable. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No worries. But again, I think the awareness is always the compass. I think everyone is given the resources, the capacity. That's great. From a company perspective, we at ServiceNow is also helping enterprises, right? Some of these enterprises is going for different type of funding that's given by government, whether to help them with technology adoptions or even just upskilling. I think that's important as well. So I think the whole nation is ready for this, if you ask me. And we know we are a tiny nation, right? AI is going to be our key asset to actually, continue to be competitive in the world.
Yeah, I mean, you must know this. I'll say this and then I'll let you go. But I mean, Singapore has been, and I think I said this actually earlier in the show too, Singapore has been, at least since its founding in 1965, insanely great at looking forward, at least trying to determine, they're not always right, but they're right a lot, and what's coming next, and then putting the entire country behind it and focusing on it. And you can see the fruits of those thoughts and that labor in just the massive growth that's taken place in Singapore in the last 61 years. Because of the way, not only because, but partially because of the way the government has sort of managed the economy over time. And I feel like they're doing the right thing in the AI space as well. Yeah.
If I may, I'll add in, I think that the dare to try, right? The whole thing about, dream big, start fast and scale even faster. I think that's true as well, because I think that's the mentality that we have. Don't be worried about being, needing to course correct or needing to pivot as the world we are living a different world right now. So being dynamic is key. I think this is also the key for enterprises, for even employees like myself, to be agile at all the time.
Agreed. Okay, CK, it was awesome to have you on the show. It was super nice to meet you. Thank you so much for taking the time. We went a little bit over, but I appreciate your commitment to this. Thank you again for coming.
All right, thanks, Michael. Thank you.
Okay, man. Bye for now. Bye. 3 daughters, man. You're a hero. So is your wife. Okay, man. Bye for now. Okay, Martin, let's bring in Tiffany. Hello, Tiffany. How are you? Awesome. It's great to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me.
It is my complete pleasure. Look, we wanted to talk to you about how AI-enabled healthcare workforce infrastructure can help hospitals access trusted clinical talent faster and better. But before we dig into that, tell us a little bit more about WeAssist.
Yep. So thank you so much for having me on board. WeAssist is a workforce clinical platform that allows hospitals and clinics to look for highly qualified and verified clinicians that you can trust. And what I always tell people, especially when we think about AI, is that trust isn't something that you can kind of find out through a process alone. It's going to be something that you build with time, it builds with experience, and that's what we do. Every single time a clinician works on our platform and takes on a shift, we learn more about the way they've worked. We learn about how reliable they are, and that builds up a trusted profile for them, which we then feed into our system and allows us to make better matches over time.
So what kind of data are you gathering, and how do you gather the data on how these clinicians are actually working, right? Because they're humans, that they don't have sensors on them per se.
That's right.
They don't have scribing on them for everything that they're doing. So how do you, like, what are you actually tracking? What are you measuring? And what does that data end up looking like? And then how do you use that data later to determine whether they're good for this assignment or that assignment?
Yeah, so we always try to split what kind of data into two different categories. One is just like attitude kind of data. Attitude data is something that we find from really straightforward, how fast they're replying, how quickly they take up a shift, how often they cancel, and how close that time period is to when they cancel.
Yeah, can I just say something? All these things are really important because, like, there's nothing, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm really passionate about this. There's nothing I hate more than a last minute cancellation.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
It drives me nuts because, like, did somebody die? Do you know what I mean? Like, or did you just decide at the last minute you didn't want to do it? Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, I get that completely. And even worse when it comes to clinical stakes, right? Because if, let's say, your cancellation was due to a small inconvenience, but on the other hand, you have someone who really needs critical clinical care. That's just something that doesn't pay off the right way.
No.
So I completely understand that frustration. And that's something we track from the attitude data side. From the clinical side, so that's something you're right. Like, these people are not wearing sensors. It's not something you can see. But who cares about their clinical performance? It's obviously going to be the workforce that manages them. So that's why every shift is completed with a nursing review, which is done through very simple rating structure done by their managers who work with them. And we also report other signals, right? Our system is able to see, is the hospital rebooking this nurse? And if they don't do that, those are signals for us too. Like, if this person only takes jobs at new places and no one ever wants them again, maybe this sends a signal that the rating doesn't show.
You think?
And you know what? If they didn't have a platform like us, they just don't know. They're always under the assumption that, oh, you know what? The hospital, maybe they're already fully staffed, right? Because sometimes that's the case.
So the clinicians, you're suggesting that the clinicians did not know why they weren't rehired, yeah?
Yeah, so let's just paint the landscape of what happens if our platform didn't exist, right? So hospitals every now and then will need part-time clinical staff.
For sure.
That's something that's been happening for decades. But prior to any advent of technology, how are people doing that? They're kind of calling people. They're asking someone, hey, do you know anyone who's available? And this personal network sort of situation benefits off the lack of transparency. You know, you get more jobs because no one else knows where those jobs are.
Yeah.
But also for the hospital, sometimes they like that because they don't want to have the uncomfortable conversation with a doctor or nurse and tell them that, yeah, you know what, your personality just doesn't vibe with us. They don't want to have that conversation.
God, I hear that all the time. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So
I mean, about me, but yeah, fair enough.
Now, if we actually have like replicable data that we can see over time across different places, then we know that, hey, maybe this isn't a you problem, or maybe it is. And that kind of structured repetition is actually how we learn things about people and how we get to improve the data that we send out.
So you've just changed the way I was thinking about this actually in a little bit, not because everything is a Michael problem or a me problem, but because most of the platforms actually give the feedback just to the hiring side. Are you also giving feedback to the hiree side as well? In other words, if some clinician is getting rehired, well, then maybe they're really valuable. Do you know what I mean? So that they can, I don't want to say charge more, but like they can be more confident in their ability to get a role. And I think they would know that. But also, if they're not great, but they're young, let's say, they don't understand like how to properly operate inside of a clinic or a hospital or whatever, they can actually learn from this and just be like, you know, Bob, if you were a little bit better at this thing and that thing, you could get rehired because that's the feedback that we're getting, as opposed to just dropping them out of the system. Because in most cases, it's the hiring side gets all this data, but the hired side gets nothing. Are you doing both sides of this?
Yes, so that's actually one of the key components of why we always felt that a structured system will improve both sides of the marketplace.
Yeah, it feels like it.
when you kind of think about quality and people talk about nursing quality, number one, there's always a struggle. Like, can you even find these nurses? But once you do, you don't want a situation where, yeah, we found someone, but they're not very good. Or we
Right.
found someone and we're not very happy with them. Because if you have a marketplace that doesn't improve, you don't actually benefit the entire ecosystem.
No.
So what we've set up is something called a reliability rate. So reliability rate feeds off the signals that we've told you about, which is all those attitude-based signals, as well as those clinical signals.
Yep.
And those feed into a score that they can see about themselves. So if they have canceled really often, or they don't get very good reviews, or people don't like them, then that actually affects their reliability score.
For sure.
And this reliability score affects the kind of jobs that they get. Because we're now moving not just from B2B, but we're actually going into home care market. So we're actually going direct to consumers. And already at the outset, we're saying that if your reliability rate is low, you're not going to see those consumer jobs. You know, those consumer jobs that typically come with higher pay and more opportunities. You haven't unlocked that yet.
Yeah, no one's going to want you. No one's going to want you inside their house if your reliability score is low. And if you're giving home care, that's obviously key. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that.
This is kind of off the reservation a little bit, but that's kind of what I'm famous for. But like now that you have, how long has the platform WeAssist been around?
So we've been here since 2020, but we're now looking into home care.
That's a long time though. I mean, 6 years just to survive as a company for this amount of time. Plus you survived COVID. Good for you.
Thank you.
So congratulations. No, that's hard work. Those are hard yards, right? I'm sure it was scary back then. I know it was for all of us. But what other, now that you have this platform that feels like it's robust, it's two-sided, right? Are there other kind of services unrelated to the clinic? I always go back to sort of payments and insurance and stuff like that, where like you have all these people on the platform. Are you thinking about what else you can offer them as you kind of expand your product offering, if that makes sense? And not just moving from clinical care to home care, but like there are other like we're paying, I presume you're paying people. And if you're paying people, now you have their money, now they trust you more on both sides. Are there other things you can do for them that make sense in the context of this operation?
Yeah. So I always appreciate this question because it comes directly back to roadmap, right? Like what we want to build and where we eventually see ourselves when we have all this information.
Yep.
So over the past 6 years, we've built and collected information across 50,000 clinical staff. Oh, wow. So they've applied to work on our platform. And the signals that we get from them is not just how they performed in the shift, but what are the shifts that they've turned down? You know, what are the opportunities that they are choosing to go for instead? So this gives us a lot of context for where else this information can be useful. And another interesting bit of information is also not just from the clinician side, but from the hospital side, because hospitals also cancel cases, or hospitals book a lot of cases at a particular set of time. We have very interestingly been able to spot flu trends before they happen, because every year around the time of June, we have a surge in applications. And I was trying to read through the cancellation reasons and understand why. Like, why is this season so popular? And it's because everyone is sick. So this information is something that we are processing and trying to figure out a way that we can provide more value to the people that do use us already, which are the hospitals and clinicians. But the people who haven't used us yet are people who belong in the healthcare ecosystem, right? People who sell medication, people who look at HR data and try to optimize that, training providers. These are all things that we think about constantly and things that we're looking at as well.
So what other, I mean, this is fascinating to me, right? That you can spot like a health trend beforehand. Flu is something that happens annually.
Yeah.
But there are other health trends that don't happen annually, thankfully. But can you see those trends as well, where like you just see a clinic and a bunch of clinics that do the same thing? And then can you give that data back to the clinic and say like, you know, this is like a new thing that's happening. You need to be prepared for that, because maybe they don't have the ability to capture data in the same way that WeAssist does.
Yeah. So one of the ways that we do that from a workforce management perspective is that we noticed around festival seasons, the A&E call will rise, right? And I think that seems quite logical.
For people that don't know, what is A&E?
Sorry, accidents and emergencies,
Thank
right?
you.
So the emergency departments will get more busy because I suppose during a holiday that happens. But what they probably didn't realize is that their own manpower also gets into situations or also get accidents, right? So hospitals are often thinking a patient load as very removed from their own ability to meet those loads. So what we do for them is give them visibility of their own hired workforce, people they've actually hired, and those dropouts. So lots of MC rates, a lot of sudden leave requests. And then we can tell them like, hey, during this time of the year, you actually probably need more manpower. So maybe you could contract them instead. Maybe you could have a surge of people in this department instead of a flat sort of like annual leave policy.
Got it. Did you work in the healthcare industry before you founded WeAssist?
So my father set up his own hospital at 47 years old. My father's a cardiothoracic surgeon. And when
So just focused on the easy stuff, I like to say.
Oh, the HR bit, right?
No. I said your father focused on the easy stuff because he's a cardiothoracic surgeon.
He just wanted to do something simple. They don't want to deal with tough cases.
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I get that. I think, and also after doing that, he decided to set up his own hospital. So he really just loves the easy life, I think.
Yeah, for sure. He didn't want to work hard at all. But what did you learn by being associated with the healthcare industry? I get it's kind of a two-sided question because you were so close to it. You must have seen all this stuff happening. And then you probably came into the building your business with some preconceived notions, some of which were 100% right and others which were probably 180 degrees wrong. I'm curious what you learned by building this and thinking, oh, I was right about this, but wrong about that.
Yeah, I think I can share some early assumptions I had.
Please.
So my background is a lawyer. I was working in the Central Bank of Malaysia. So I was looking at regulation from this is policy and we apply it throughout, right? Because that's what central bankers do. We look at policy for an entire nation and we think that's what's applicable. When I entered the healthcare industry, which was prior to 2020, but prior to COVID, which of course was difficult, but it was a really great way for hospitals to become very quickly digitized and adopt technology that they would otherwise have ignored. So prior to that, I think the conversation I always had in my mind was that if only hospitals adopted a little bit more technology, they will find things much more simple. But, as I've actually entered this landscape and I work in it now and I feed into the landscape, I realized there are lots of things that remain manual for a reason, not only because the process is maybe a little bit better, but because the idea of trust is so valuable to hospitals that even if you're marketing something else, if you're saying that, oh, you're running through a system, they won't buy into it. They won't want it. And then that just means that our product doesn't get utilized. So this means that, very deliberate decisions are made on the way we credential clinicians, which I initially thought, great, let's automate the entire thing. Let's run it through a system. It's going to be fast. It's going to be efficient. Right. When we went out to hospitals and tell them that we're doing this really quickly, they're like, no, we don't want that really quickly. We want that done by a human. And I'm like, a human can make mistakes. They're like, no, I'd rather a mistake made by a human than a mistake made by a robot.
Fair enough. All right.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what we learned from that.
But don't you think this is a really good point? The patient in this case is also human. So if the clinician or if the doctor, if the hospital, if the clinic itself makes a mistake, there's a way to disintermediate that mistake by just apologizing in a way that's genuine, right? And that feels real. But I think you're right. The trust is really important because there's no way that technology can apologize. And I think it feels like more of an excuse to me. Do you know what I mean? When someone goes, oh, sorry, the thermometer wasn't calibrated. I know that's dumb, but you understand the point, right? Like that wasn't calibrated properly. It feels more like an excuse where like, if the tech doesn't work, it's nobody's fault. But if I trust you, I'll be like, I make mistakes in my job all the time. You made a mistake too. I get it. Let's work together to make it better. But you feel like the trust thing is so important. What do you have to do as a business person to get the clinics, the clinicians, and the hospitals to trust the fact that the technology is actually going to work for them so that they can automate these things and they can at least be assisted, pun intended, by the technology in their jobs and their roles?
So I had a conversation with a traditional hospital. We met yesterday. We were doing sales to them and we were trying to explain the concept of just a digital timestamp. So that's something that we're all very comfortable with and very familiar with. Everyone's doing it. But for many hospitals, that's not how they clock in. Right, clocking in is either done by punch card or you're done by writing on a book.
Oh, wow.
So when I shared with them that, you can tap a button and that will clock you in, they could not, the struggle was that trying to see how this button thing could cause you. They were saying, what if someone pressed the button early? What if someone forgot to press the button and pressed it late? Right. So then I had to draw that parallel between what they did with the book. And I'm like, what happens if someone doesn't write in the book?
But they can always go back and write, like at 11:30, you can always go back and write, oh, shucks, I forgot to, I'm just going to put 10:30 down because that's when do you know what I mean? Like you can do that.
Yeah, and they do that. And then we told them, okay, we built something in that lets you adjust timer later. But now we have a tracker. We can tell you who made that adjustment. It's not just your friend to say, hey, can you cover for me? I came late, but can you write in that I came in early?
Do people do that?
I mean, if you think about human behavior, right? There was all this technology to also move your mouse during those working from home days. I think some people will find a way to defraud the system if they can. So what we believe in, and
I love humans, by the way, but sorry, go ahead.
I love that you love humans, and we work with humans every day. But I think a part of loving humans is loving how innovative humans can get.
So do I. Love it.
Right. And like trying to find ways that, okay, what kind of creative mechanism will people have in order to get away with earning a little bit more from the system? So what we try to tell these hospitals and try to get them to adopt it is to draw the link between what they've been doing. So we had to be like, pressing this button, it is the same as writing on a book, except better. And this is how. The moment we drew that parallels, it became so much clearer for them to understand. And it seems simple, but helping them understand how their workflow doesn't change, their workflow only improves, makes it much easier for them to adopt. And then the second thing about trust I wanted to say is that when you think about trust, we're not thinking about accuracy. Like everyone understands in clinical outcomes, it's not about making the correct judgment. It's about making a call at the time, about making a reasonable call that you have used your knowledge and information.
Just that you're doing the right thing and you're operating in good faith, right? And that's why I said before, like mistakes are okay.
Yeah.
Like, were you trying to cheat the system? Were you trying to do it too fast? Did you have to get home? Like, no one wants that, right? And they don't want it from humans. They don't want it from their tech. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so this judgment bit is what we needed to show them still remains a lot in their hands, right? So a lot of decisions, the way we've designed our platform and the way we've allowed people to complete timers, get systems done are made with judgment still in mind. And a lot of that is human judgment. And when they can show that this human judgment is being replicated over time, we then can introduce them that, hey, technology can help you do this. Help put your judgment onto a place that's automated for you.
Where does agentic AI come into play here? I mean, that's part of once you start automating particular workflows, right, and start using agents to do things, a lot of things change. I'm curious what your experience has been like, where you see it actually working and not working, and like how it's changed the way the clinics work at scale.
Sorry, I'm having some.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
So,
just relax. This is not an inquisition. It's just for you to have fun. So don't worry about it.
No, sorry. I can hear someone else in this call. There are like 4 people in this call.
I can't hear anybody else, but I can tell them that you could. That you can hear them. I'm sorry.
In the call as well.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem at all. Happy to answer your question. Okay, so what I wanted to share was that when it comes to agentic AI, the most important thing here is to establish that the product itself is trust and quality.
Yeah.
Right. So if we have trust and quality as a product, how do we then use AI to improve the outcomes from creating or identifying better trust? So it's not about trying to outsource the review. What we've realized is that how do we move people along the difficult and annoying process of being reviewed? So agentic AI for us is about kind of like chasing the clinician, reminding them, hey, maybe there's some paperwork that you kind of want to fill in. And that's the processes that we're looking at into helping more people go through our system much faster. And I think from that angle, what we can see becoming much more valuable over time is when we think about care coordination for those who are at home, they are going to want something like that, something to prompt them. Hey, maybe your family member needs some care today.
Yeah.
You haven't had anyone booked in yet. That's something that we can do for you. And then we can go in on the back end, our agent can go and search who's the right person for you and prompt them to fill out their shift.
How different is the home care installation of technology with the sort of outpatient or inpatient care? Do you know what I mean? Where they're actually interacting with the hospital or the clinic directly?
Yeah. So I think when we think about inpatient care, oftentimes the length is long, like just from a practical standpoint.
Yep.
And for inpatients, oftentimes who is seeing them doesn't matter as much. They don't mind if the nurses change because you're admitted, you're kind of staying put, right?
Yeah.
So you're in a hospital, you're not going to insist on the same nurse. On the contrary, when we're looking at someone in your home, you're going to always kind of want to have someone really familiar all the time.
Agreed.
And that can be kind of difficult to coordinate if we don't have tools that can help us make it much more structured and streamlined. So this is why I've honestly tried to do home care a couple of years ago before AI. And that process was long, it was tedious, it was very painful. We could do it, but it was a lot of manual work. But today, that looks very different for us. That is being able to look into someone's calendar and recommend a shift that they already can fill all 8 sessions in advance, right?
Wow.
And that's much more strategic.
Okay. Tiffany, I'm going to let you go. You were incredible today. Thank you for your patience with like having somebody else talk in your ear. I know what that feels like. It's so hard to do. Like when someone's whispering in your ear and having another conversation, it's so hard to do. I really appreciate your time. You were awesome. And I learned something today, and that's important for me and for the viewers as well. Thank you so much for doing this.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Take care.
It's my pleasure.
Bye.
Martin, let's bring in Carmen. Carmen, how are you? I am super duper. Where are you based? Oh, now you're just showing off. I like it.
Yeah, both great places.
Both great places, exactly. Well, look, it's great to have you here. I hope our connection is good. I wanted to talk to you, obviously, about how intelligent fleet technology is improving the safety, efficiency, and economics of business that depend on mobility, which should be all businesses. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about Cartrack first before we jump in, yeah?
All right, so just a little brief introduction into Cartrack. So our mission is to simplify decision-making for physical operations. The company was founded over 20 years ago. We started out in South Africa, and we started out solving a simple problem, which was around vehicle theft, which is obviously quite prevalent here.
Yep.
Soon after that, about 3 years later, we actually started to move into telematics and fleet management, and we moved into the commercial space. And over the years, we've just continuously innovated. And if we look at ourselves today, we've moved into much more than just, let's say, traditional telematics. We're doing a lot of the operational visibility, helping customers with their maintenance. How are they optimizing their workforces, optimizing all of their operational costs, whether it's fuel, tire rotations, and just helping them improve not only productivity, but I think the key focus is actually helping them streamline their processes to empower their teams to do a better job.
Talk to me about process automation and workflow, stuff like that as well. This is a question I ask to a lot of people, but I'm really curious in your industry and with the people with whom you're working. A lot of times people will say, like, we need to take the existing workflow that we have and automate it, and they don't change any part of that workflow, and it doesn't become more efficient. It just becomes technologized, but maybe takes the same amount of time, and some human still has to be involved. I'm curious what it takes to actually get somebody across all of the things that you're doing, which is a lot, to understand that the workflow itself has to change too, and that's when technology becomes most powerful.
Yeah, it can take a lot. The reality is as well, a lot of the businesses that we work with are at different journeys in their digitalization world. Let's say some of them are fully old school, totally manual, everything's paperwork driven. Others have already started to adopt technology throughout their operation. I think the key thing is businesses want to improve. Businesses do want to improve their bottom line. So the thing is more about how do you make that actually practical for them?
Right.
Some companies like to jump and take you from 0 to 100 overnight, and that's obviously just not feasible.
No.
So we take a very pragmatic approach to it. So what that means is from the start, you're actually given product training. We sit with you, we help you build out the solution. We show you how it's going to fit into your day-to-day world. And every 3 months, we keep contacting you, keep working with you so that you're not doing 0 to 100 overnight. We're actually just improving one thing. Let's get that working, get your teams working with it, make sure everything's smooth. And then we go back and let's start to work on the next thing. And once the teams start to see the results, then it becomes more and more smooth and the more openness they actually have to adopting this technology. I think the other key thing, which is definitely one of our differentiators, is despite how comprehensive our platform is, we like to say it's simple but not simplistic. Because if you have a comprehensive platform, but it's difficult to use, nobody's going to use it no matter how many problems you can solve.
Doesn't matter.
So the key there is how easy to use our platform is, which then just makes it easier to actually adopt into a business.
Yeah, you've been at Cartrack now for about 6 to 7 years. I don't mean to say 6, 7, but that's just the way your life has worked out.
I'm not that young. That's not my generation.
Neither am I, but still, I know what's going on in the world. But the point is that you've been there. I did this with one of our previous guests as well, but like you've been there pre-ChatGPT, so pre-LLM sort of release and post. And I'm curious how like all of the things that you're doing have kind of been tied together or have changed because of your access to much more powerful artificial intelligence tools and even agentic AI tools. And how has that progressed internally, and how has it affected how you've worked with some of your clients and partners externally?
Yeah, I think before all of these LLMs, our culture is very much to move fast. But I think post these LLMs, the key thing that's really changed is we can move a lot faster. So we've adopted the AI into many different aspects of our operation,
Yep.
especially in the kind of the back end. So whether it's within our development teams, marketing, how we're actually communicating with customers, everybody's using it. And I think we just getting a lot more done in a much shorter time.
And are you finding that people are making much better decisions based on the information that they have, with the understanding, again, about the difference between deterministic outputs and probabilistic outputs?
Yeah, I think obviously it depends on who's using the AI, and we have checks and balances in place to try and make sure that the AI is not just, people like to use AI and just think that AI is smart, but obviously it depends on how you're using it.
Yep.
But if it's being implemented properly, then it's definitely helping people. We work with a lot of data. And you can have like data specialists and people who really understand data. But I think a key thing is with the LLMs, it's just made data a lot more accessible to everybody. So if you know the right question to ask, you don't actually necessarily need to be that much of a data genius to actually get the answer from the output to start working and to start executing on improvements.
Great, because that means I can use it too, because I am anything but a data genius. I'm not sure I'm a genius at anything, actually, to be fair. Can I ask you this? Because this is something I've always thought about, but you'll know this way better than I would. How has HEVs, so the hybrid electric vehicles, and then just like the regular electric vehicles, why do I feel like there's so much more technology in those cars than in like the gas powered car? Was it just and again, I know you're not a mechanic or like a guy or a gal building a car, but you must have some experience with them, right? Like, is it just easier to put all this tech inside an EV? Is there more space there? Like, what makes it so much easier? I feel like when I get into a BYD, I feel like I'm in the future. And I feel like when I get into a BMW, if it's not like one of their newer, I'm in the past. Do you know what I mean? Like, what's so different about an electric vehicle that makes it so much easier to do all this stuff and put more technology in it? Is that fair?
I think it is fair. I think there's also the component which is that they just look more techy than a traditional vehicle. They definitely do. I don't know if it's because they don't have an exhaust or the grills at the front are different, but they definitely look more robotic and smarter. So there's definitely that element. I think as well, just a lot of them are a lot more modern. And so just that technology was more available when they were building out their production lines, and getting all of that involved was just a lot easier. So I think when we look at the, let's say, EV first companies, a lot of their tech is kind of embedded more end to end in the vehicle. Whereas if you look at more of a traditional vehicle, it depends, like you said, on the newer models. There's a lot of technology coming in. But I think as well on the road, you see a lot of old vehicles, and that can also just, can create a bit of a bias with us, where a lot of the newer vehicles coming from these manufacturers are also smart. They all have a lot of elaborate CAN bus technology, which allows us to get more data as well for our customers. But I think, without an exhaust, the car definitely looks a lot more smart.
I didn't think about the exhaust thing. Yeah, I did not think about that, but you're right. There's no pipe at the back, like putting smoke out. Don't laugh at me like that. I think a lot, and I've been thinking about this for a long time, but I think a lot about autonomous driving. And again, I don't want to get into the technology around it, but I do think one of the key implications for autonomous, I mean, there are tons of them, right? But one of them is data gathering. And I'm curious like what you think about and how important that data gathering is, and then how important that is to feed that into the artificial intelligence that goes into the platform.
Yeah. I think obviously the data is critical. Without the data, it's hard to get any operational intelligence. So I think it's great. And actually a lot of vehicles, new vehicles, even in Europe, there's a lot of the OEMs who are starting to put their own devices into the vehicle, which allows us to gather a lot of data without having to install, without having to install our own technology. So the more of that data we can get, the better, because it's not only used to help a customer, but the more data we can actually help to improve on our own platform and kind of continuously contextualize this data to get better insights for our customers.
Right.
But again, like with any data, it's what can you do with that data? Do you actually know what you're doing? I think collecting data for fun doesn't really help anybody. So it's really about having the industry knowledge, the context to understand like what is actually going to drive a business forward in terms of data versus what's just going to drown them in tons of numbers flying around that don't actually add value.
Can I ask you, do I have your title right? You're the Chief Sales and Marketing Officer. Do I have that right?
It's the strategy and marketing officer.
Strategy and marketing. Okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah. No, that's good.
No, but it's really important stuff. But also the necessity for you to have really good data from a strategy and marketing standpoint is also really important. How do you communicate with your data team about like, this stuff is great, but I need more of this, and then I need an analysis that does that so that I can then go out and tell our existing clients and our potential clients why what we do is so important and so efficient and so effective?
Yeah. I think it helps that my background is in actuarial science. So
I saw that.
do
That's why I asked. That's why I felt safe asking.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. But I think the real thing there is really like being on the ground, understanding what customers care about, and then understanding, okay, you're worried about fuel, but how can I make that practical for you? Because I could give you thousands of different fuel data points, and they're not going to help you actually understand where to start with your business to start saving you money.
Yeah.
So a lot of it really is getting that understanding of what's happening in the ground, taking a mindset to say like, what is actually, as an operator, what can I really execute on? Because some stuff could be great, but it's so hard to execute on that it's not going to drive any value right now.
Right.
And then speaking with the data team to say like, I need XYZ inputs. How can, like, firstly, is there anything else that you can think of that I'm missing?
Right.
But then actually going in to say like, get us this data so that we can then go and communicate it to our customers to show them how we can add value. I think the key thing there as well is, I mean, there's one thing at the start where you're actually just selling and educating to customers to get them to understand how operations intelligence can actually help their business, because again, that knowledge is kind of more prevalent in some parts versus others. But then even once a customer is using the platform, how can you get them to continuously want to improve and communicate that to them so that they can keep improving on their operation using your platform?
This is a kind of a rhetorical question, but not really. I'm just curious. I think I know the answer, but you must maintain as a company really strong relationships with the car companies themselves, yeah?
Yes. So we have those relationships, but to be honest, what we do see on the ground is even if you have the OEM relationship, the people actually distributing the vehicles are not the OEMs themselves.
Right.
So the OEMs work with distributors, and each country has their own distributor. And then you've got the distributor who owns the rights, but then they work with different dealerships on the ground, and that can also be different companies. So you sort of need to actually build relationships at all different levels of kind of the supply chain. And that's what we focus on doing.
Are you seeing different reactions to new technologies in different regions or different countries? And I would say actually even in different cities. Like which city are you in right now in South Africa?
I'm in Joburg.
So you're in Joburg, right? So Joburg is a very different city than, and you're based, you said, where in Singapore, yeah?
In Singapore, yeah.
I mean, Joburg and Singapore are like night and day. They're both great cities, but they're both very different, yeah? Are you seeing different sort of approaches to the way, not just the way the technology is applied, but the way the data is assessed, the way the data is analyzed in different cities? And you can use Joburg and Singapore as examples. You can pick any two cities. I'm just curious, like is there a faster pace somewhere? Like what's different between the cities where you're operating?
Yeah, I would say that the only clear difference would really be when something is more of a government mandate. So for example, compliance. So in Singapore, the government's issued that all commercial vehicles need to have speed limiters, so they can't drive above a certain speed.
So like in
whereas
the UAE,
in South Africa,
like in the UAE, yeah?
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah. And no. And so in South Africa, you don't see that. But other than those sort of government mandates, I would say that the difference is not so much on a country perspective. It's more of a business perspective.
Got it.
So we have some companies in South Africa that have like really intensive APIs. We're connecting into their ERPs, into their HR tools, etc., to bring everything into one place. And they're optimizing their business and working with really, really extensive data. In Singapore, we also have that. But then, and we're working with, for example, the Singaporean government, and we do a lot of stuff around vehicle sharing, reducing their resources so that they can become more efficient. But at the same time, in Singapore, we also have people who are really at the start of their journey and are looking for, let's say, more entry-level technology as they start to accustom to then build up. And same thing in South Africa. So I think it's really more of a business to business comparison, as opposed to sort of a country specific thing, other than on the compliance side.
Fair enough. How important is it from an artificial intelligence implementation perspective to be in a place like Singapore where the government feels like really involved in a way that's supportive as opposed to restrictive?
Yeah. I think it's obviously great having a government that supports business and is constantly pushing on innovation and technology. Obviously creates an environment where that's a lot more prevalent in terms of the population itself. So more people are using AI. It's top of mind for a lot of people. There's a lot of training going in place. The government offers free courses to Singaporeans so that they can actually understand how to use the AI. And I think just being in that sort of a world definitely helps, especially when it's just more prevalent.
Yeah.
I think that really helps with the technology, and just getting that support is definitely beneficial.
I don't want to let you go because I love talking to smart people, but just give me a couple more minutes if you don't mind. How do you think all this stuff? Sorry, how do you think this stuff gets impacted by like the improvements that are definitely coming or have already come at some level in autonomous driving? And then how important is going to be the vehicle to vehicle communication and that data sharing across the board, particularly for the stuff that you're trying to accomplish?
So I think the vehicle to vehicle, it's sort of two different things. The one is how do we improve on autonomous vehicles?
Yep.
The other would be, as a fleet operator, how can I improve on my operation?
Yep.
So obviously the vehicle to vehicle communication will be critical for the autonomous vehicles and improving on that technology and reducing any sort of like accidents happening.
Yep.
But if I think of it, if I'm a logistics operator, besides reducing the likelihood that my vehicle is going to be in an accident, or that, there's sort of emergency braking, which damages my cargo in the back, a lot of the data that I'm looking for is more around my vehicle, my operation, when the vehicle arrives at my depot, how can I reduce that turnaround time so that we're just completely like maximizing our output, as opposed to what is the other vehicle in the street doing.
Yeah, can I ask you this? Sorry, this is too interesting. Do you mind? Can I just do one more thing?
Take your time.
Singapore itself, from a road perspective, seems to me to be very automated. And unfortunately, they've named their system. It says ERP at the top, but it's not the same ERP you were talking about before with the AIP connectivity. So just to be fair, but I want to make sure I have every time I look at it, I'm like, is that what they really mean? But I'm curious, like once we get road sensors and because ERP has a ton of sensors in it, like how further ahead do you think Singapore is from a lot of sort of cities or city-states where the technology is already being built, but we're not there yet to get the cars connected in a way that's proper? And like what changes when that actually comes to fruition? And then I'll let you go, I promise.
Yeah, so what changes when more vehicles are connected, and I suppose the government has more data to understand what's happening on the roads?
Yeah, I mean, just traffic flow and all of the things that are associated with understanding the data from a government standpoint and just from a road management standpoint as well, and a traffic management standpoint.
Yeah. I think a key thing is really going to be around helping to reduce accidents, and that's really top of mind for Singapore. You can see by how they already had quite, let's say, slow maximum speeds compared to other countries in the world. And now they've gone and reinforced that with the commercial vehicles and speed limiters. So they're definitely focusing a lot on reducing accidents. And if you can actually see how the traffic is flowing through, what the speeds are, where are the problem areas, and sort of heat map it together, then that will definitely help them understand where they can start to just improve on their mandates and just their road infrastructure itself to reduce those accidents and reduce those higher likelihood areas. There's also just, I think, a lot of improvements on Singapore doesn't like traffic. No. If they can understand
they complain about traffic that's like free flowing in every other city in the world. So fair enough. Yeah, they don't like traffic.
Pretty much. Yeah, they don't like traffic. The more data you have on that, the more you can see why the traffic is starting. Where are the bottlenecks? Obviously, they can start to improve on streamlining their roads and reducing traffic as well. Yeah. So there's a lot that the government can do with that data. How much of that data would actually help a fleet itself improve their operations? That's more up to debate. Obviously, if there's less traffic, I can do more. but that's not necessarily solving the majority of my operational problems, which are causing much bigger problems than traffic for me.
For sure.
And so with that, yeah, they really need an operations management platform like ours.
For sure. Okay, Carmen, look, I promised I would let you go. Now I will keep that promise. You were awesome. Thank you so much for spending so much time with us. Have a safe trip home. Hopefully your time in Joburg, it's hard to have a bad time there, but hopefully your time there is great. And again, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your time. Have a good day.
Bye for now. Bye-bye. Okay, Martin, let's bring in Christine. Christine, how are you? I am super. Can you hear me okay? Awesome. Let's just bring you in. There you are. We wanted to talk to you about how AI observability can help businesses operate increasingly autonomous technology securely and reliably, But before we do that in detail, tell us a little bit more about Splunk.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on. It's first time here, so very excited.
Awesome.
And I was in the waiting room, just digressing it, waiting in the room and watching all the smiles and happiness. I think this is going to be a fun place to be.
It should be fun. It's not a quiz. It's not an inquisition. Don't think about it that way.
This is a great way. I'm based in Australia, based in Melbourne.
Awesome.
Great way to finish off the day, right?
Super.
Anyway, let's talk about Splunk. So Splunk is now part of a Cisco company.
Okay.
We actually help organizations become more digital resilient, particularly in the AI area, through our security and observability capabilities.
Got it.
We know today organizations dealing with massive amount of data.
Yep.
At that massive scale, what we help to do is turn those machine data into actionable insights so that it can actually prevent infrastructure or application, networking, and security incidents before it became a major issue, remediate the traps and really the disruptions faster and adapt quickly.
Got it.
So that's what Splunk does.
Can you talk a little bit more about resilience, particularly digital resilience, like what it means? I know you gave a little bit of a description now, but can you dig a little bit deeper and try to give our audience, our viewers and our listeners, just a little bit better understanding of like, when we talk about digital resilience, what it means and just how much harder it's becoming to be digitally resilient? Do you know what I mean? Because like 10 years ago, being digitally resilient was way different than it is today. Yeah.
Yeah. And frankly, 10 years ago, it is not as digitized, right? So today,
no. That's why it's so much harder today.
The way you operate and run your life, everything is digital.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen before, like if you've traveled everything is a digital payments. Everything is a QR code.
Yep.
And COVID really accelerated all that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So what does it mean to be digital resilient? Everything that we do today, everything we operate today is depending on a system that actually can drive a business. So everything is an application. If an application is down, whether it's a performance issue, whether it's a disruption from a security threat specifically, this is inevitably going to happen for organizations. So a digital resilience is a matter of how quickly can you actually return back to normal operation before it affects your end customers, before it affect and impact your organization's brand reputation and revenue dollars, right? So that's what digital resilience means.
Perfect. That's a great explanation. And you're right, actually, if you go back 6 to 7 years from today, things were not as digitalized. Is that a word? What's the right word? You know better than I do. Digitized? I'll use both.
I've seen two versions of it, right?
I think it's two versions too. There's the Australian version, then there's the Michael version. I'm not sure which one is right. But if that's the case, if digital disruption, if more things are digitized today than they were 6 or 7 years ago, then that means disruption is actually more disruptive, if that makes sense, right? Are people starting to catch up to this idea that the visibility around their digital systems are way more important today? Is that a fair statement to make?
I think it's fair statement, but I wouldn't go one step further.
Go further.
It's also our expectations are higher in terms of responsiveness, how we interact, how we actually respond to a service, how do we operate? And then if you fast forward, in fact, currently what I'm seeing is what we call the AI era, the agentic era. Think about how complicated, and I want to circle back to your question that you had before. How is it more complicated? In the past, it was very much, we call it monolithic, very much code-based, really set. you kind of know what an application is doing, right?
Yeah.
If it's down, it's up, that sort of thing. Then we see organizations want to take advantage of speed and agility and cost, and they start to move into microservices-based applications and cloud-native architectures. So they have that. So it becomes more distributed. It becomes more complicated. Now, today, you see the agentic area. So you got organizations taking advantage of AI. I mean, today, I'm sure you used AI everywhere, agents as well. And sometimes you use it without even realizing you're using it. So that AI workload becomes even more complicated, because I think a lot of organizations, some of the surveys that we've done, about almost half of the organizations in the AI workload now making the environments a lot more challenging to manage.
But for sure, I mean, it's hard to disagree with that, don't you think?
Yeah, it's very hard. I mean, like just knowing, understanding what AI agents are all about, that it is, you can't really know what it's going to do. It's designed to think, to match patterns, to decide, to autonomously direct and do, calling on further agents to do this. That in non-deterministic nature of AI agents, it's absolutely very challenging. So I do appreciate I guess the pain and the complexity that our IT and our security analyst teams needs to deal with.
Yeah, but I mentioned observability a moment ago, right? And then you went through, I just want to read some of this stuff or just refresh my memory, right? You were right. Like when I was working in a corporate environment, the systems were relatively monolithic. Like they were connected at some level, but not like they are today. Now we have all these different services. Now we have all these sort of microservices. Now, as you said, all these services are distributed. And then on top of that, you add agentic AI. It's like stuff is coming. It's not just like 360 degrees. It's like it's coming from 720 degrees, it feels. Do you know what I mean? It's coming from everywhere. How, like it's so much fundamentally harder to observe. How do we put ourselves in a situation where the systems that we're using for observability are now not only, but like are trying as hard as they can to give us the right signals and not eliminate, but like minimize noise to the extent that that's possible from the stuff that we really care about?
Correct, exactly. I think that you actually hit the nail on the head. It's about stuff that you care about.
Yeah.
Because not all noise are important.
No.
Right? Not all alerts are critical.
No.
So it's about prioritizing matter, which means observability is all about that. Observability is about understanding of systems, know what's happening in the decision-making process and what's happening within the system, and know how it's going to impact the business. So the business context is very important, and you can prioritize what you actually want to recover and get the business back to operations as fast as you can. So that's about observability, right? The other thing is, because of the nature of the complexity that IT professional ops has to deal with, the scale that it has to, the scale of the data, the massive amount of data coming, the amount of alerts coming, we have people, when I talk to organizations, they're actually saying, look, morale is so impacted. I think in Singapore, 2 out of 3 IT leaders say they're actually the team morale is impacted because simply by dealing with tool sprawl, simply by dealing with a lot of alerts coming in. So what they do is there's one side of it. They're using AI agents to try to help drive triage, troubleshooting faster, remediate faster as well, right?
Yep.
But that's just using it for operations. Then you got business who are running AI agents to elevate the customer experience because it's a unique differentiator, right? It is a competitive advantage they're going to drive. And when you think about that, is you take the observability and we call it now agentic observability. How do we actually make sure that AI is trusted? Because that's one of the biggest challenge that a lot of our executives are saying, I'm doing an AI, but it's sitting on experimental stage, right? How do I take it to production? And the gap there is a trust gap, right?
Wait,
where
the back gap is what?
The trust gap. So the gap is
yeah.
So sorry, don't know whether you missed that.
No, I just didn't hear it properly. But can I ask you this? A lot of companies are involved right now. It's still, I mean, I know we're in August of 2026, but and it feels like it's like August 2036 already, because it feels like it's been a long year because technology has changed so fast. But like a lot of companies are still in the experimentation phase. But if they're experimenting with, generative AI or agentic AI, it still exposes them to like all these observability and visibility problems how do you know what I mean? Like how much of this stuff is getting from that experimental phase into the sort of implemented phase, even though like the signals that they're getting from the observability when they're just doing testing may not be as robust as they want it to be, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I get what you're saying, because so I can probably relate back to
That gets to the trust thing you were talking about. Sorry, go ahead.
Correct. Yeah. So okay. Yeah. So I think we're on the same page here.
Yeah.
So when I talk to my customers,
Mhm.
because my role is to actually just help on organizations, what I call graduate from one level to
Do
another.
they know that?
Yeah. So they actually, the challenge is, what I would say is, when you want to build AI, you need to make sure that it is consistent, right? You need a reliable, and is doing what it's intended to do. Right. So that's what it is. So how do you do that? You have to observe it. Right. That's the other thing. First, you've got to do evals, proper evaluation. So we have the formula is you do evaluation, you do observe, and you do protect with guardrails. Right. So those are the things, because when you do run evals, this is how it's designed, this is how it's working, you do scoring, that's confidence scoring, right? And then you next move to level, okay, so let's let it run. Then we could observe the decision-making process. Is it doing what it's supposed to be? Is there drift detection? Are they sending out any, PII data, for example, that sort of thing? So you observe it. And then when it does, if it does hit one of those guardrails, you need to be able to catch it. That's a circuit breaker.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a part that is quite a lot of customers are missing that part. That guardrail is very critical, because AI can fail because it's non-deterministic. It can do things and make assumptions, right? It joins patterns, right? So when it does hit a guardrail, you do that, but it's a feedback loop, right? So the eval is you get that, you learn that, you teach, right? So that's how I normally, when I talk to organizations, that's what I discussed.
Do you get the sense that these organizations understand how important that the governance part of this is? And does the observability and the visibility feedback that they get change the way they implement their governance policies around this new technology?
It is critical. You need to, the guardrails is there it's like a circuit breaker to catch it.
Yeah.
Right. We hit guardrails. That guardrails, when it hits it, you use that to train back. So you do back to the eval, get evaluation, and actually do that. So it's a loop, right? So you evaluate, you observe, and you guardrail it. So to catch it, to do that, and then feed that back. So it is. I think a lot of organizations are aware of this, but I think a lot of it I've seen a few phases, there's a few stages where they start going, let's just go out and do AI, and they give engineers to do that. And then you've seen that Uber burns out the whole token budget in 4 months, right? A whole full year budget in 4 months, right? So you've seen all that things happening, but that's where that missing part is, that observing. What is it doing, right? Guardrailing. Is it going to hit a financial guardrail, let's say, was given, right? And then to track that. So I think that's probably where we're at now, and a lot of organizations are waking up to that.
So you have been involved in the technology world for enough time to have seen a few cycles of like really interesting new technologies being developed and also implemented. Yeah.
Yes.
Can you remember? Like, I remember the companies where I've worked, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, putting policies in place to like govern how we did email. Do you know what I mean? But I was involved in a sort of trading environment, so the information that was in my emails could have been sensitive. But the governance around email was pretty straightforward. And I'm just trying, as I'm speaking to you, I'm trying to figure out, like, have I seen another piece of technology or another sort of suite of technologies that have been implemented where the governance around it was so important that it was actually part of the technology itself? I'm curious if you've seen, I can see you thinking, you're like, that's a good question. Do you know what I mean?
That's a good question.
Because I don't think so. Do you know what I mean? We spend so much time talking about agentic AI and generative AI and artificial intelligence and, artificial general intelligence and all this stuff. And then I think like governance is a big part of it. But where else have we seen this before? And if we haven't seen it before, what is it about this technology you think that makes the governance part of it so important and so critical?
I think that's a very fair question. I mean, it's a really good one because it got me thinking as well. It almost then started to get my mind thinking about, maybe we should be talking about governance observability. Right?
Yeah. We definitely should. But I don't want to get into this meta sort of circle, but I'm just curious again, you're involved in this on a day-to-day basis. I think about it a lot, but you're there actually doing it. And you've been doing it, whether it was at IBM or any of the, or at Cisco or any of the other places where you've been employed. But like this feels different, and I want to know why, from your perspective, it feels different, because I'm sure it feels different to you as well. I'm just curious.
It feels different. So this is, from my perspective, it feels different because this is a little bit uncontrolled and massive scale. So like it's human driven, right, versus agent driven, right?
Yeah.
So it almost as if you think about AI agents, it could actually do a task like, okay, I'm going to compare it to security, for example.
Go ahead.
A security analyst, and I was going to compare it, like, because I just built a house too, so sorry to overshare here.
No, go ahead. I've done that too. It's a non-trivial thing. Go ahead.
A non-trivial thing, but you have rooms, you got houses, and like typically a security analyst, think about unlocking all the doors with keys, right?
Yep.
But an AI agent has like a master key that unlocks every single door in a matter of seconds.
Right.
Matter of seconds, right? So it's faster. It's more like it kind of has agency, right? Oh, it's funny, agency.
No, but
agency.
I know what you mean. I like it. It's actually kind of funny, but yeah, I get it.
Yeah, but to actually do that, right? So I think it's kind of different. That's why it drives its complexity, and it's also coming at everyone so fast.
Yeah,
the development of it, the innovation of it, is coming at us so fast. It's almost like how do we take advantage of all the strengths of it, the benefits of it, and then but also put, once again, I'm going to use the word guardrail around it, so that it actually, we're protecting the company. I would also caution about using it too far, for example, to be full autonomous for anything operation or business that has consequence, right? Like, for example, in patient welfare, sort of care, for example, those sort of things, or like you say in Goldman Sachs, client dossiers, you've got to be very careful with those information, right? So those are the things that you kind of have to kind of identify. Where are the things that you actually, are we going full autonomous? Are we going more, like I said, the graduation of human in the loop, human on the loop, human out of the loop, that sort of thing, right? I think that's just something I find it's kind of the same as when you do simple things like a governance, a policy on how you run email, what you send email, you could protect data, the level of criticality and sensitive data. This one is now, yes, human, but it's also now agents, all right?
Yeah. What is the relationship between, and again, because you mentioned building a house, but like all the doors, all the windows, all the entryways, all the exitways, all this stuff, right, create security issues as well, potentially. But for a house, it can be finite, right? You're not going to have like 1 million windows and have 10 million windows the next week. But from an agentic perspective, that's possible. What is the relationship between visibility and observability and then business security, which can have a direct impact on profitability and cash flow and stuff like that?
Yeah. So as I was saying, observability is visibility with context, with business context.
Fair enough. Yep.
You need to know how it impacts the business. You can prioritize, right? So that's probably maybe to put in a simplistic term. The business visibility it needs to tie it back to how is it a revenue impact? Is it a business, sort of brand credibility impact, for example? Is this a compliance impact, for example, right? So, and then the other thing about observability is it gives you visibility, but it also tells you, for example, how you're going to prioritize where you're going to focus your time on. Because the first thing you could do is generally when you have an incident or a downtime or something, a performance degradation, you actually don't know from an IT professional, IT ops, a security ops, a net ops person, do I have a security threat, someone's attacking, right? Or do I have a infrastructure or networking issue, for example, right? Or application code issue, or it actually could be market leading. It's a click frenzy of Black Friday's event. Everyone's hitting your website. What is it? Right? That's what observability gives you the context.
Yeah. And how do you control that context? And how does that context feed into the governance that we were talking about before?
Yeah, this is so that's also the tools that it actually the platforms gives you that information on that, and then you actually need to make sure that the team actually understands and apply it to the KPIs, right?
Yeah.
The business workflows and KPIs. I think that's how you actually have to do it. So there is the tooling, there's the people, there's also the process, right, of the team, the organization.
And how about the data that, like, we mentioned the fact that all of these systems are becoming less monolithic, more connected, and they're all gathering more data. What is the impact on sort of what is the necessity for the data infrastructure to be more robust? Again, from you, when you're talking to clients or potential clients, for the data infrastructure on their side to be more robust, so that the visibility and observability actually is more resilient, actually.
Yeah, accurate, right?
Yeah.
Or reliable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We spoke a lot about data management, right?
Mm.
All right. First of all, there is about data quality, and there are critical services that will require real-time data. So you need to tier that, right? You need to make sure those are the really important, critical, crown jewel stuff data. So data associated with those needs to be tiered. Then you've got data that can kind of withstand a little bit. So you need to tier that and actually have that in federated, for example, in different places.
Yep.
And then you've got audit data that can store somewhere else, and then you hydrate it when you need it. So we talked a lot about that but one thing is very important. You need to make sure the data is accessible, right?
Yeah.
It's accessible. That's centralized. It's like central, but you can tier it, you can manage it, you can federate it based on economics, right? A cost, because there's only a finite amount of budget you have to deal with, right? So that's probably where when I talk to customers, that's what I talk about.
Does the growth of autonomous AI, or has the growth of autonomous AI made real-time visibility more important, you think?
Let me understand this question. Replay it. There's the growth of autonomous AI.
So in other words, if I just have like a machine learning process running, like the visibility on that process is, like you said, it's more monolithic. But now that I have autonomous, like going out and doing things, right, that maybe it wasn't doing before, where I gave it a process to do, I knew what it was doing, it didn't have any sort of agency, as you were saying before. But now that it potentially does have some agency, even if proper guardrails are put in the right place, does visibility become more important than it was before?
100%. I think so.
Can I say this just to follow up really quickly? And do the institutions and enterprises with whom you're dealing actually understand that and understand why? Sorry, go ahead.
The second question is a good one. Right?
The first question makes you look really stupid, Michael, but the second question. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's not what I meant. Sorry about that.
No. I'm just trying to make you laugh. It's all good.
So the first part of the question, is it critical? 100%.
Yeah.
Because I think in fact maybe I dumb it down a bit. The AI agent is just another application.
Yeah, no, I get it. But again, I like to use Microsoft Office because I believe that this is something that everybody has used or has been using for the past 30 or 40 years. You only have so many like instances of PowerPoint running, and PowerPoint can only do so many things. So that's an application too. I understand that an agent running is just an app. It's almost like a cron job that's on permanently. Like I used to do Unix sysadmin, which I know will surprise a lot of people, but don't laugh at me. But the point is that like the cron job can only do what I told it to do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So agentic AI can potentially do things that I didn't intend it to do because it has a little bit of a mind of its own. Sorry,
correct.
Go ahead. That's why I want to establish that. Yeah,
100%. So I'm with you. I absolutely agree. You're absolutely accurate on that one. Visibility is even more critical now because you actually don't know what, as you gave the example, right? It actually it's opaque, right? How it decides, how it determines that. It's non-deterministic is what we call it.
Yep.
So you need that absolute real-time visibility on what the agent is doing. So the second part of the question, do
companies actually understand this? Yeah.
Yeah. I think some is aware. A lot of regulated customers are realizing that, right? There are also some customers who are into the experiment, and then they kind of hit that and goes, oh dear. I think we need an observability solution here.
So we used to, can I just interrupt you because you just made me think of something? I won't say the word we used to use when I was at Goldman Sachs. We used to say we had two kinds of customers. Ones that would say, "Oh dear," like they didn't know. And then ones would say like, no dear. Like, yeah, I get it. I already knew that thing. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
But try to replace the word dear with some other word that would fit in that. I don't want to say it's a family show.
We'll use it as no duh.
Good for you. Okay, better way to explain it. Sorry, go ahead. So how does that fall out?
Sorry, what do you mean by how does that fall out?
In other words, if you have these customers who are like, oh dear, now I have to implement this thing. But again, like now they're at the beginning of the journey as opposed to like a fully fleshed out journey.
Correct. A lot of them are still in experimental stage,
Yeah,
right?
go ahead.
So I think that's fine. And a lot of them are like, in fact, most of them are actually almost holding back, pushing it into production at scale. So they're doing experimental. So this is actually the right time to do that. And they've hit during the experimental stage, they realize, I think we need an observability solution.
Right.
So that's where we started looking at, well, it's all about instrumenting that. How are you going to actually drive that? How are you actually going to have observe what the agent is doing, right? So, and then and this is a thing that I always remind my customers to say, you do need to put a guardrail in that because it can fail. Just because it hasn't failed today doesn't mean it's not going to fail later. You know, if it hasn't failed, you say, oh, I think it's doing well, it's great. The thing is, that's not evidence. That's not evidence, right? You need the evaluation data. You need the evidence. So that's why you need to observe. That's where you get it. And then that's when you put the guardrail to catch it when it does deviate.
Yeah. Do you get a sense? Do you mind if I take a little bit more time?
Sure.
Do you get a sense that the way that this stuff is being looked at is more of a top-down thing where like the C-suite and the CISO, if there is one, sort of pushes this stuff down to like the line workers? Or is it more of a bottom-up where people are just like, things feel like they're a little bit out of control here and I don't know what's going on 100%. And if I don't have the right because again, in the old days, I could just have like an IT support team down on the 7th floor. And if I had a problem with one of my applications, they could either be monitoring it already in a way that was simple while they're having lunch. And I'm not saying it was that easy. I'm simplifying it to make a point. But now, as you said, with all this stuff going on, you could literally go from one application to 1,000 applications for every person, that the monitoring, the visibility becomes so hard. But is it a top-down thing or a bottom-up thing where you're thinking, you know what I mean, where you're getting the message of, we need to have better visibility?
You're going to love this answer because I'm going to say I'm seeing it from both.
But tell me, no, I figured that was the case, but I want to know why. Like in which instances is it bottom up and in which instances is it top down? If that's okay.
Some scenarios I've seen, the top down is the business having to reinvent themselves, trying to address new ways of elevating their customer experience, their end user experience. So they're driving that. There's also a push for driving maybe productivity gains, and they actually want to do that. So that's a top-down thing. Let's do that. Let's do AI, right? So that's that sort of thing. The bottom-up thing is about typically, generally, engineers. Their nature is to innovate. Their nature is to build products, right? That's what it is. So I've seen the bottom up coming up to do this as well. So they are playing around with this. They're testing out the agents. They have shadow AI popping out everywhere. That sort of thing, right? So that I've seen from both sides, right? And I think that's why I feel organizations, this is so complex for them, right? But there is an answer, right? There is a way to go. Like I say, just make sure you have, a stage process and that graduation process, right? Continuously to evaluate, continuously to observe, continuously put the guardrail, and have that cycle.
So this is a term that people have started to use with me a lot recently, and that is shadow AI. And to be fair, I kind of had an inkling that there was shadow IT, even when I was back working in a corporate environment, but it felt hard. Do you know what I mean? Like even bringing your own device, like I had to have a BlackBerry. I couldn't use my iPhone at first, right? Because they were like, it's not, approved by blah, 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 whatever it was, right? It is the implementation of shadow AI just like bigger than I know it is inside of enterprises, large and small? Like how big of an issue is this? And then what is the result for the stuff that you're doing from a visibility perspective?
We did actually conduct a report in Splunk, and I think we found more than half of the organization report that shadow AI is the problem.
Really? What does that mean? Does that mean that people are just like building their own agents or doing their own generative stuff? And like it's
so it could be that, but it's more basic, even simple as they've got their own AI tool. They're running Claude somewhere. They're running their own ChatGPT somewhere, right? So they're running their own AI frontier models, right? The danger of that is, how do you monitor what data they're sending out? Is it company sensitive data, right? That sort of thing. So that is the shadow AI popping out, and that is, it's already here. They acknowledge this is a challenge, right?
Yep.
So you're right. It's a little bit more different to the shadow IT, but similar principles, right? Similar.
Can you tell me this again, because I've been out of this for a while, but like what has changed inside of these institutions that make implementing, because I just can't imagine me sitting at Goldman Sachs and just like spinning up some AI functionality on my desktop PC. I just can't imagine that being possible. What's changed now that makes that possible? Like, does someone bring in their own Mac Mini and just like plug it into the desk and start running?
No, so now it's just, everything is just an app, an application, right? It is on a, like you can just run Claude anywhere. You sign up to the account, spin it up, run it, right? So
yeah, no, I know that. But how can I use it at work? Or are you suggesting that like people are using it at home and connecting it to somehow at the office?
They can use it at home. They can use it on their phone. They can use it like they can share the data.
Yeah.
So from a company policy, you can restrict it, right? You can restrict if you're actually in their environment, the networks, for example, do that, right? But there's nothing stopping anyone from actually running their own AI models.
Okay, that never would have flown when I was at work, but okay, fair enough. I don't know how you guys do your job and do it so well, but I'm sure you do. Because the surface increase is so, do you know what I mean? Like when the stuff that you used to do your job was invented or was first developed, the amount of surfaces that it needed to cover were not nearly as large as it is today, and were not nearly as complex. So like the development that's necessary just to get that to a point where it can do all the things that it needs to do with confidence is just, again, so complex and so hard. So I'm just kind of amazed at that. Sorry, that's all I was trying to say.
Oh no. I'm also like equally amazed and I also respect and appreciate how my customers have to deal with the situation.
Yeah, like for sure.
That's a 100%. And like, so I think there is a pathway, and we're all going on this journey. And it's one of those, I guess, like as you say, it's a journey of the technology at the moment, right?
Absolutely.
So that's where we're at.
Okay, I've kept you way over time. Hopefully you had enough time to do this. I really appreciate it, by the way. Thank you for being such a great sport and for a really, really robust and great back and forth. You were awesome. Thank you so much. Really, Christine.
Thank you for having me on.
It was my pleasure. Hopefully you had fun.
I did have fun. I did see the laughter. Hopefully the next one sees me laughing as well.
They definitely see you smiling. Thank you, Christine.
Thanks, Michael. See ya.
Bye-bye. Okay, Martin, let's bring in Jerry. Hello, Jerry. Can you hear me okay? Okay, and where are you right now? Oh my God, I'm jealous. I'm envious of you. I love Shanghai. It's one of my favorite cities in the whole world. So fair enough. It's great to have you on the show. Yeah, and you're based in China, yeah?
Yeah, I'm based in Shanghai.
Super. Let's have a really great Shanghai-based and China-based conversation. We wanted to talk about how AI-powered content operating systems are changing how small businesses can build brands, audiences, and build a competitive advantage. Tell us a little bit more about Lingbi.chat and Quill, if you can, and then we'll get into like the main part of the conversation.
Yeah, of course. Actually, that's based on my previous job at Fandan Dushu as CMO. Fandan actually is a leading knowledge payment company in China.
Okay.
The business model is similar to Linkist. Basically, we develop those celebrities like TV announcers, college professors, like McKinsey partners, and help them create a book interpretation. And then we charge our members fee to subscribe to those book interpretation. So it's purely a knowledge payment business. It runs really well, and the annual revenue reaches to like 1 billion RMB every year. So we have like around over 100 million followers on social network. So we have channel matrix. So it's a proven business model. But I mean, the bottleneck is good supply. You know, there are not so many celebrities like TV announcers or professors who both have like top knowledge and also have social influence. So we need to try hard to turn them into those top professional creators. And we quickly found that the bottleneck is like first the capacity. Those celebrities, they don't have enough time. They have their decent job. So you ask them to spend a lot of time to make short videos or write articles, and it's not just feasible. And so that bottleneck just cannot let us just increase our revenue. And then AI came and it changed everything. Because I myself is a professional creator on Red Note. Red Note is like the Chinese version of Instagram. And I have like 27,000 followers. I started writing professional articles about how to get promotion, how to talk to your boss, and I quickly got a lot of followers. And when GPT came, so I put all my previous article into GPT and then trained a mini Jerry and asked him to write a Red Note article for me. And it works super well. And it took only a few seconds to generate really high quality content. So starting from that, I realized, okay, with the help of AI, maybe we can just shorten we shorten the time to get really good supply on the content. And so we made the agent called Quill. In Chinese, it's called Lingbi AI. So right now, it's only a tool to create a top article ready for you to post on Red Note or on WeChat channel. And so our initial goal is to help people like me to only spend 5 minutes a day to use Lingbi AI to generate a top quality article, which has similar quality as me, because I'm a pretty good professional creator on Red Note. So only 5 minutes a day. It usually took me like around hours to come up with a good article. So that means we put a lot of know-how on it. The know-how all dated back to our previous days to help those TV announcers or college professors to come up with good content. So we put all the know-hows into a AI agent and launched this tool starting early this year, and took half a year for us to test the water. And the result is really good. So right now, our first batch of users for me are those people who have knowledge potential but don't have time. For example, like founders of small and medium business, or like insurance agent, like individual consultant, or even those wellness coach. So those people, they on one hand, they have really good expertise in certain areas, like business or their own product or like wellness. They're expert in that. At the other hand, they don't have time. They don't have knowledge to be a professional creator like me. So our tool just help them fill out the gap of the other hand of problem, and just expand their already existing expertise and make it transfer them into social influence. And then they can use those content to be their online name card, or even attract followers and to become the consumer or customers of their own business. So that model runs really well. Yeah, and so that's what we are doing right now.
I mean, I have like a million questions. How much time do you have? What does your system need to know? So I like what you said. Like, you took all of your articles that you wrote. Really, it's a very simple thing. If you had 100 of them or 1,000 of them, not that hard to sort of consolidate them, give them to agentic AI and have them learn sort of Jerry's style. But what else is it Lingbi or is it Quill? Should we talk about it? What name do you want to use?
The website is called Lingbi, so let's just put it as Lingbi. Yeah.
Okay, so what else does Lingbi.ai need to know about me or about you before it can create content that really represents me? Do you know what I mean? In other words, does it just need to know what
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
already written and done, or does it need to know that, like, I used to work in Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs? Because there's a lot more to me than just sort of the content that I've created, although there are thousands, literally thousands of conversations that I have out there. And I have thousands of transcripts of all the stuff that I've done. But what else does it need to know about me that's going to make it really, really Michael specific? Because I've tried to do this on my own.
Okay, that's a brilliant question.
Thank
So actually that involves in a lot of key components of our product.
Yeah.
The first step actually is we have a function to ask you questions. Actually, you just simply need to fill out a questionnaire, and you give us your professional labels like Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, investor, TV announcers, whatever. So based on those facts, we use our previous approach and give you what we call IP plans. So like, okay, plan A, you be a top investor investor-oriented creator, and plan B, you become a media-oriented creator. So that's all based on the label or the information you give me, and we fill out questions for you to get your performance. So that's step one. And step two, we have a mini recommendation system behind. Because we have been doing this business for a long time. We have people the information about, okay, if you become an investor or consultant role, we know, okay, what kind of topic or content is are suitable for you. So you don't need to come up with topics by your own. So we will provide you with those market, those topics which are already tested by the market. So that's based on our expertise. So you have your IP method, your IP plan. You have the recommendation topic, and we trained those content generation skills. Before even skill is a popular word, we already trained our skills. So we come up with all those top contents and use AI to learn their in the method and give you those skills. So with these three, you can come up with a pretty good content that matches your label and that also matches the could be welcomed by the market. But still, we need one key component is your stories, is your insight, is the details of like back to your career, your successful stories, and even your opinion on different topics. So that part, if you haven't to do like those writing or diary as a habit, you don't have it for one time. You cannot just dump all your knowledge just for seconds to give it to AI. It's not possible. So that's why right now we come up with a recording card. We collaborated with Zhipu. Zhipu is a top AI company in China. So we have a recording card. We have this recording card. So for me, like what I'm doing right now, I do interview, I do like a customer interview, I do even internal meeting. I use the recording card. So when I was sharing those professional ideas or content and my view on AI, it's all recorded. And we on Lingbi, we have a function to generate based on all those recording material, we turn this into the social media ready components. Like today, I've shared with you a lot about my previous job, and I record this, and our Lingbi will just based on the material, it come up with like 3 stories about what Jerry have done previously. So later, you have your IP plan, you have a suitable topic, you just choose the stories you accumulated daily, and you come up with a article that has your personality, that has your story, and you have AI to do all the writing and formatting stuff. So that part, you only take you like 3 to 5 minutes a day to come up with a pretty high quality content. And later, we're still working. We're working on method to use digital figure later and to train a digital jury. And you mean the topic, the IP plan and the content are still there. And then we just turn this into a right now article, then into a digital jury short video. So that part, it's super committed for you to do the social study.
So how do I know right now I'm not talking to this digital Jerry you're talking about? Can I please confirm that I'm talking to the real Jerry?
Yeah, I'm a real one. Yeah, if you want to ask me to do anything, I can do that anyway.
So this works on audio and video content as well, and you don't have to take a transcript out of it. You just give it like in other words, like just for this show alone, there are, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of videos about like the conversations that we've had. You just need to give it a link to all the videos, and then it will understand, or maybe a link to like the 100 most representative videos, and then it will figure out how to make similar content based on this with the same attitude and sort of the same mojo. And then you're going to build an avatar that's going to be able to then generate the same type of content, but that can generate it separately from this real person talking to another real person.
Yeah, I mean, to use this approach for your followers, you still see the real label of Jerry. Right now, article, and later maybe a digital Jerry with short video, and still the real one. I mean, the back, I mean, the inner content all dated back to what we do daily, professional sharing. Sure. Like right now, I'm sharing with you my insights about this business.
Yep.
To me, it's already good content. And right now, like if we do this one-on-one, all the insights can only be consumed by you.
Yep.
But if I use this as raw material and use AI to expand it into social media ready content, then my 27,000 followers can learn it maybe in the evening. So that's what we are trying to do, is to help every person with knowledge, IP potential to expand their expertise, let them be seen by many people, by more people. And then their potential customer may reach out for them and say, okay, yeah, Jerry, let's do business together. So that's what we've done back in 樊登读书 for a long time. And right now we use AI to help our customers to do that.
Do you get the sense that creating content for different platforms requires a different output, in the sense that, like, if I just want to create an audio podcast, it's going to be different than if I want to create something for YouTube, but then if I want to create a short for YouTube, it's different than if I want to create a longer form video. And frankly, like Instagram, you talked about the Chinese version of Instagram, but if I want to do content for Instagram, it's very different even than a short for YouTube. How does the how do we systematically change what that content is so that it's platform appropriate as opposed to just generic for every platform?
Yeah, that's a good question. So that's what we Lingbi, what our Lingbi is doing. We train the content generation skill. So every skill behind that are a lot of materials customized to certain platform. Like right now, maybe if I'm a consultant, say consultant IP plan, we can choose like, okay, yeah, we have a lot of similar content from RedNote, and then okay, the content you generate based on that writing, that skill, the content will be more suitable for RedNote. So that's the job we need to do. And so later, if you want to help people do Instagram ready content, we have to come up with a content generation skill and then make it suitable for our customer to use.
Right. And but does it? Sorry, but does it create that content again? And will I know like what that content is, and then can I then send it to the proper location or the proper platform to be able to then to publish it properly?
What do you mean? You have content from our Lingbi, and you can put it on different.
Yeah, so I want to send it to Instagram, or that I want to send it to YouTube, or I want to send it to YouTube Shorts, or you know what I mean? Is it labeled properly? Is it just adjusted properly? Is the aspect ratio different so that I can send it to the right platform? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. I mean, for our product, we didn't do it like instantly. It's not that okay, you generate content from our website and you click and you put it on different network.
How does it work?
That's not you cannot do that, because we didn't design that function. It's because if you do that, I mean, it's too convenient, especially in China. Those platforms will sense that and say, okay, you are AI managing accounts. We'll kind of do something to you. So we didn't do that. It's to protect your account.
Got it. So you want to make it look like the person that's generating the content is not using artificial intelligence to generate it, so it looks more natural.
Yeah, that's true.
How do you ensure or try to ensure that, like, if there's a guy who's had like a similar career to me, who has like a similar perspective that I have, I mean, we're not going to end up creating the same kind of content? that it's not going to end up at some level that what I call content drift, right? Where like at the beginning, it's very specifically, clearly Michael, but then at some point it runs out of, do you know what I mean? Like it runs out of the right level of creativity to make it sound like me. And it sounds like my buddy, Ted, who I used to work with at Morgan Stanley.
Yeah, I know. That's a good question. So we are not worried about that. So, for me, I used to work for BCG, and I have a lot of my BCG former colleagues who are
and I'm sure at
using
BCG, there's a lot of people thinking the same thing, but also have the same process. But a lot of people have the same process, right? Which ends up with the same result. So it's a great example. Please go ahead. I'm sorry, I did not mean to interrupt you.
Yeah. So even we have similar labels, or even similar thinking method, or even a similar way of doing communication, but our living, our life previously are different. So I can provide like project 1, 2, 3. The other lady can talk about project ABC. So they're all consulting projects, but they're different because we live different life. So that's why we ask our users to fill in their real life example or content. That part will make a huge difference. We have different life, even if we both work at BCG.
And can I add stuff to it? In other words, if I'm like, oh God, that story from when I was 7 years old could be really important for this thing, let's add some new content in. Do you know what I mean? That's not like recorded, or not like I could just record it myself and drop it in there.
Yeah, of course. You can fill out your example in the website. Like, okay, come on, I have a really good example like 10 years ago with certain clients. Okay, let just type in what I've done and use this as raw material. And later, you can even create like dozens of articles based on the same story, as long as the story works really well.
And you are committed to using Jipu AI, or can it use any model? And how do you decide like? And are we paying token costs for these models, or is there some subscription that you have that allows for your service that allows me to use kind of as much of this as I need?
Actually, for us, we have picked up a Chinese AI model, which we have tested, and the content is really good for doing this job.
Z.AI is really good. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. We have Z, and we also use the model of Alibaba. I mean, anyway, so we have tested for our user. And later, if we have those like a digital jury, the short video function, and we're thinking about maybe we can choose more models, and we'll charge our users those token fee, because if we come up with short video, the token, the amount of token will be consumed to a high number, and so that's what we're planning to do. But right now for the article, I mean, the token is okay. I mean, you writing article doesn't consume a lot of token, but the know-how, the approach is the key difference, and the content you give me makes a huge difference.
What so writing content is relatively straightforward in comparison. I said relatively on purpose. In comparison to actually building an audience. What type of sort of audience feedback do you monitor to make sure that the content that I'm creating is relevant and, what's the right word, actually resonates with the audience that I'm trying to address, and help me build that audience as well, right? Because if I'm creating all this content, even if it only takes me 5 minutes a day, but only like 6 people are listening to it or reading it, I kind of don't care. Yeah. So how do you help people build an audience as well?
Okay. Yeah. That's actually the latest step we're helping our users. So first step, use Lingbi to create your very personalized content within like 3 to 5 minutes a day. Later, we ask them to post those content on RedNote, on WeChat channel, like 3 to 5 times a week, and we teach them how to monitor the data, the performance. So you actually at the first beginning, nobody knows which kind of content will be successful for sure. You just give them really easy tool to test. Like, okay, 5 minutes a post, like 3 posts a week. Okay, half an hour a week. I can launch the pilot. And our users right now, they just do this, like somebody even do this every day, 10 minutes a day. And for 1 month, and he can monitor the performance of every post. Gradually, he will know, okay, yeah, I write certain topic and the feedback is good. Our followers are really like that. Okay, I'll change my IP plan or even topic to that certain kind of article. So that part you cannot ignore that. It's part of the way, a part of the journey to a personal success. So that pilot usually will be really long and really time consuming. So, but right now use AI. You do it in last 3 to 5 minutes a day, and you can put up with that amount of time invested. So you can do this pilot by yourself.
Are you seeing expansion outside of China where, you know, people in Thailand or in Singapore or some other countries are actually using this service to create their own personal brand in the insurance agent space and in the, I would also consider like the real estate agent space as well? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. We're thinking about that. So right now we have, say, pretty good launch in China, and we have really clear, knowledge about those suitable users. And like I said, our users right now, like those SMB founders, insurance agents, or the consultants, we can find those people in other countries. So maybe say 1 year later, when we talk about this topic again, I can introduce about the foreign version of Lingbi to you, right? So that's the way in the plan. That's the way in the plan.
Okay, so there's not a foreign version yet. What has the uptake been like in China? I feel like when I talk to people that are building technology in China, I feel like I'm talking to the future. Do you know what I mean? So that's why I'm asking you about this. But what has been the success and the uptake for this product in China, for your business, for Lingbi?
Say it again.
What has been the uptake? So how do people like the product? What are people thinking about it? How many users do we have? Like how's it going so far is really what I want to know.
Right now, like we have, actually we didn't promote it for heavily. We only like spread it around my own network based on my like Red Note account and my WeChat channel account. And right now, still the trial stage. I mean, the feedback is really good because not only those individuals, even companies come to me. Say, okay, Jerry, you use this approach, help us build a say like a sales team account matrix, right? So that part, because everybody wants to easily create their personalized content and put it on social network to get business. So right now, I mean, we have really good hint, and starting especially when we have the AI recording card with Zhipu, and that's a really good product. So right now we are trying to use to do what we have done before in 樊登读书, like launch those promoting plans on like Douyin or like on WeChat, and to try to promote this product and get more feedback from the market.
Yeah, this is I mean, obviously I'm in the content creation business, right? So I find anything that's related to the content business super interesting. I'd love to keep in touch and understand like how this product is growing. But what you've told me today like keeps me very interested, Jerry. So keep working on it, keep doing it, keep creating like really great content. Let's get your subscribers on your Instagram like feed up to 100,000 and keep doing it, man. This was really great. Thank you so much for your time today. I had a lot of fun. I hope you had a lot of fun. I learned something as well. So thank you again for coming and doing this, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to talk. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye for now. Okay, everybody, that is it today for ATP Insights. Thank you again to everybody who joined us both live and who will join us not live today. I really appreciate it. Give us a thumbs up on the video, subscribe to the channel on YouTube, and follow us on all of our socials on X, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn. And I mean, if you want to see the best conversations with the best guests, but also the best sort of news roundup and the best stories, you should be watching ATP Insights. You should be telling your friends to watch ATP Insights. It doesn't cost you anything, and you learned a lot. If you watched today's conversations with our guests, they were insanely great. I mean, everything, let's just go back to this list of guests we had today. Everything from Simon at Eats 365, which was fascinating. The ServiceNow from CK was great. Tiffany Khoo at WeAssist was fabulous. Carmen Calisto blew my mind. Christine Lowe was amazing. Everybody was super great. Tell your friends about it, and also leave us comments. If you're going to participate live, ask us questions in the chat. We had almost we have tons of people actually watching the chat. I mean, watching the show live. We'd love to have back and forth between you and me, you and the guests, which I can facilitate. We love that. We love answering questions. So keep that up. You can look for us again. What day is today? Thursday. We'll be back on Monday at the exact same time with another sort of great list of stories to talk about and news to round up, and also another really great list of amazing guests. My name is Michael Waitze. I'm going to say bye for now.